Let me see. I am live, but how do I share the video?
Oh, hello, everybody.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Jadis. Obviously, you know me. And this is my guest, Evil Incarnate. Evil, go ahead and introduce yourself however
Yeah,
you see fit.
I'm Evil Incarnate, Devil in the Flesh, really. At least that's what I get called a lot. It's like, you know how the internet is, there's no civil disagreements anymore. There's no discourse. It's all just name calling and insults.
Yeah, and that's the main reason why we're going to be talking is because of where that's coming from and maybe how justified or not justified that actually might be. So give me a second. I think I found a link. I'm going to share it. I could do a better job next time, but right now I'm sort of phoning it in. So your power's out where you are.
Yeah, I
Is it
have
still
no
out,
power.
or what did it?
No, the power's still
That
out. So I'm
sucks.
currently on my cell phone, and I don't know. Well, like right now, it's like I do have like 85% battery life on my phone. So um here we are. But it would be better if the power was on because I sent you a bunch of links that I thought would be interesting to talk about.
Yeah,
Like
and I think I saw most of those. I don't think I saw all of them, but I saw most of them, and other ones I had already seen before. Um, and this is definitely something that's of interest to me as well because being transgender, um, I take issue with some of the things that I've seen. Give me 1 second.
yeah,
All
because
right.
I know I sent you a link about this guy who's like, why I am no longer non-binary. I don't know if you watched the video yet, or did you have time to
Uh,
watch the video?
which one? Which one? You said
Why?
the non-binary one. I don't think I got a chance to see that one,
Oh,
but
okay.
we can still discuss it because I definitely encountered a lot of non-binary as the ones that we've described in our private messages. Um, give me 1 second. I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the tweets is. I also shared out the video on my timeline. So what you could do is that you can go on my timeline under media, and like media will show all the videos, and it's a video called like why I am no longer non-binary, and it's a must see because he talks about how two-faced and fake some of those people are. Like sure some of them are genuine, they genuinely believe, but many of them are like oh, I am dating him publicly, but then they're like him privately. And, it's like he says that like as soon as the cameras come off, it's like a personality switch. It's like Jekyll and Hyde. It's like when the camera is on, they're like, oh, it's like I just want to fit in. I just want to belong. Why are these people so mean and discriminating against me? But it's like, it's like when the cameras are off, they're mean, vicious, vindictive. They nitpick on each and every little thing. They're very confrontational.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a lot like people they invest in YouTubers, they love in YouTubers, they want to be the white savior and be a lot like, oh yes, we want to make everything easy for you, but it's kind of a lot like this guy's like if you only see these people off camera, you would know just how mean, manipulative, dishonest, and flat out vicious they truly are. They just have a new personality when they're on camera, but off camera, they're actually very vicious.
So I mean, they act like celebrities then, because celebrities are also known for you've got the personality that you're selling, and then there's the real you. And as long as there are no cameras around, as long as they're sure that you don't have, like, say, your phone out, they can be their genuine self. They're free to be as cruel as they want to be. Um, and I've also seen the opposite too, where someone will come off as like edgy and cruel, and they'll do whatever they can to score points with their tribe or whatever. And then when the camera's off, then they're suddenly very cordial. They're like, "Oh, don't worry. That's just my personality." Like it's two separate beings, and so that's why you shouldn't really take any influencer or YouTube celebrity at heart, because they're not the same. You're going to put on a face in front of a camera. If it's myself right now, I might seem very assertive, but in the real world, I'm actually kind of reserved, a little bit shy. But in the camera, I can be very, very direct, very blunt, and yeah, it's people change in front of a camera is what I'm saying. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse.
Yeah, Blair White talked about this with Candace Owens. Not only Candace Owens, but she also talked about Steven Crowder. With Candace Owens, she was in a live stream with some black guy, and she was talking about how fake Candace Owens is. And she says, like, when the cameras are off, it's she, her, and, you know, like Candace Owens is actually like really nice when the cameras are off, but as soon as the cameras are, you know, on, it's like he, him. So it's like, it's she, her when the cameras are off, but
So,
he, him.
so she's trying to make sure to appeal to her base, and her base is conservative, right-wing Republicans, right? So, that doesn't surprise me. She knows how to play the game, and like, don't get me wrong, there are things I like about Candace Owens, things I like about what she's been doing. Like, I like Blexit because I'm not an identitarian. I like Blexit. I like the walk away movement, where the opinion is we're not your puppets. We're individuals, and you can't just manipulate us into voting the way you want us to vote. So I like that. I'm very much individualistic and anti-authoritarian and identitarian. So I like that part of her, but I don't like how fake she is, and I know she's fake. For that matter, as much as I love Blair White, she's got a very different personality, and it's not the one that you see on camera. And she does come off as a little bit ditzy too. No offense if Blair ever sees this, but she comes off as a bit of a valley girl. But I forgot where I was going with that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and Blair White, she also called out Steven Crowder. She called him out a few times. She says that, you know, publicly he makes fun of trans people, but privately, you know, he actually is very supportive of trans people. You know, so publicly. Huh?
That doesn't surprise me either, though. And those two things can be true with the same person. You can poke fun at something and still be supportive of them on a different level. It's like there are limits, right? So I'll support someone all the way up until they start being a threat. And I think that with a lot of conservatives, they're very supportive of trans people. What they won't do, though, is support trans advocacy where they want to transition children, or when they want to be in like young males transitioning. Maybe they haven't even started hormone therapy, but they want to change in the women's locker room. That's not right. Girls don't need to see that. It's still a biologically male body. And other things that the TRAs are pushing. You know, I think a lot of conservatives are like, fine, do your thing. I support that. They'll even go so far as to say, yeah, maybe we need reform so that trans people can get better health care. Maybe it should be a little bit easier to change your documents. I've heard a lot of conservatives talk about those kinds of things. They generally will draw a line, though, when they think that there's a real threat. And one of the things that like one of the typical conservative talking points is the family. And so once they feel like the family is threatened, that the youth are threatened, that's when they'll draw a line. So I'm not trying to be an apologist for them, but I'm saying that I've come across that. So it doesn't surprise me that Steven Crowder's doing that. Anyway, go on.
Well, what do we?
I didn't mean to derail you.
What does TRA stand for?
Oh, Trans rights advocate. I'm surprised I haven't come across that term. It's kind of like SJW. An SJW
Oh,
is social justice warrior. TRA is a trans rights advocate, and TRAs are generally very loud, very like they're very vocal, like actually very loud and annoying, but they're also like online. They have a boosted presence. Part of it is because a disproportionate amount of these trans rights activists are doing all the talking, and most trans people like me are stealth. We keep quiet to ourselves. We don't want people knowing that we're trans. We don't want to out ourselves. So they're disproportionately represented online, and they tend to be some of the most unhinged, most radicalized, and they're the ones that are getting hurt. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so their demands are being met, and they're being met all over the world. Unfortunately, those demands aren't exactly right. They're demanding, like my community is demanding rights that we shouldn't have because they're not rights. Like, it's not a right when what you're asking for ends up trumping someone else's rights. Like my right to be a trans woman, it doesn't trump a biological woman's right to have her own spaces, for example, right? Um, anyway, so I'm probably going to just be dancing all over the place. I'm very very ADD. Go ahead.
you're
I'm not
you're you're very what?
ADD.
Oh, ADD.
Like,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I know what ADD is. It's just that, you break up because I think it might be my phone, but
or maybe I'm too far away from the microphone. That could be it too.
yeah, it would be better if the power's still out so I can't access all of the links that I have because it's weird because I try to be organized and well prepared and I did all of that planning. It is like all that planning, all of that organization,
Yeah,
and now
it's the best laid plans of mice and men. Doesn't matter how much you plan, life will throw you a curveball every now and then.
yeah, because it's like I also because like I wanted to hear your opinions on different things because I never heard of you before, but what happened was Lapis sent me the DM to your debate. And
Mhm.
so when she DM'd me the debates, I clicked on it, I watched it, and then I agreed with everything you said. So I clicked the subscribe button. Like I thought you just did a very excellent job, and I thought you brought up very good points. And I just like,
But
wow, this person
see,
is smart.
if I'm being honest, in that conversation we had, she's intellectually superior to me. So any points I make are going to be very crude. I'm not smart. I'm not well read, and she is. So she has an advantage on me, and it's kind of hard for me to intellectually argue with her. Like, all I can do is I can argue from a simplistic point of view, like from like the common person. But like I kind of feel like she's elite. She's up there, and so like I don't know if I want to debate her again. I wouldn't mind having another conversation with her, but like the kind of debate we had, I don't want to end up turning myself into a straw man, if you're familiar with that term. I don't
Yeah,
want. Yeah, I don't. Go ahead.
I thought that you were fantastic because my criticism for Lapis,
What were we gonna?
is that she brings up things that nobody's heard of and nobody's care about because I think that we're approximately the same age. We're both millennial, right? But like back when I was in school, everybody would be cheating on people cheats on their homework, people cheats on their test. People
Mhm.
are not, the average Joe, the average person isn't the academic type. So
Mm.
she brings up things that most people never heard of or cared about. It's like she talks about, well, like the great Satan, like calling America the great Satan, and it's kind of like, and she linked it to Iran, and it's kind of like me. I'm sitting here thinking, I had no idea Iran called us the great Satan. It's like they did that. I had no idea. or it's just kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, you referencing something happened millions of years ago. But if you work most jobs, like if you ever worked at a factory before, if you worked at a warehouse or security, most people are not all that well read. Most people have basic knowledge, basic understanding source things. Most people are not, most people don't read like 10 books today. So it's like when you speak, I would say it's important to speak to the average person. In fact, that was the criticism to Sargon of Akkad when he was debating Richard Spencer. When Sargon of Akkad made that quote, it's like, "Have you read John Locke?" And I think Richard Spencer says, "I don't think most of your average person's read John Locke." You're
Yeah.
speaking to when you're making your arguments, you're speaking to the average Joe because your average person doesn't read like 10 books a day, you know, at
So
most.
if I see what you're saying that as sophisticated as her points might have been, it doesn't matter because it's lost on most of the country. And as unsophisticated as my points might be, most of the country is going to get at least that. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, exactly. Because you speak to the average person because the average person doesn't read like 10 different books a day. It's kind of like, so as articulate and well read she is, she may as well have read an encyclopedia of 50 different or 500 different types of spiders. It's like, well, okay, that's nice that you know something that I don't care about. It's nice
Mm-hmm.
that you're well read, but it's kind of like if you're well read about something that happened, like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, I'm just thinking, why should I care now? In fact, that has been the biggest complaints of the left. It's kind of like, white people had owned slaves years ago, and it's like, well, black people aren't slaves now, and there are bad things happening in China, like the Uyghur Muslims, where
The
I think
Uyghurs, I think they're pronounced Uyghur, but yeah,
yeah,
that's there's a genocide going on in this part, and it's the China denies it completely. They say that it's all fabricated. It is misinformation perpetuated by the West. None of the claims are true, and even though we have Uyghurs who've like escaped, they're like political refugees, have escaped, and they've requested help from Congress. We're supposed to disregard that completely, apparently. So, yeah, China has blood on their hands, and they need to admit that. But the U.S. does too, and that's the thing I'll concede is the U.S. does still have blood on its hands. There we do still have a legacy from slavery. That's still true, but that doesn't mean that while that is true that things are nearly the way they used to be. We've made a lot of progress, or at least we had been making a lot of progress up until about 5 or 6 years ago. And that's when the intersectionalists and the like the critical race theorists, all these SJW types, really started taking over, not just institutions like they normally would. Like there's a long history of this kind of thing happening in higher education, but they have managed to get themselves in all areas of the tech industry. So every major platform has a diversity committee, and that diversity committee is very woke. But it's also in levels of governments, and they've managed to, like, when it comes to university, when it comes to education, they've managed to take up positions where they can gatekeep. So if you aren't woke, you're not going to get a job as a professor at school. So you have to pledge your loyalty to their faith. And that's what it is. Wokeism is faith. It's their belief, their religion of whatever social justice they think that they've got. But I will concede something, though. I will say that everything that they believe, there is a grain of truth to it. There is a core, like a tiny core of truth that has been blown out of proportion. It's like someone makes an observation. Yes, this is true. The conclusions where they go from there, completely way off. So I think that the way to defeat this kind of thing is to acknowledge the truth and say, I see what you mean here. You have a point, but this is where you're wrong. And I don't think that there's enough of that happening. Instead, we're tribalist and we're like, no, you're wrong. And we'll just shut you down completely. We won't even want to have a conversation. We end up getting very aggressive, at least from the more extreme left versus right.
Well, I mean, it's hard to have a conversation in general with Twitter people, because I think that Twitter people care more about virtue signaling and point scoring than having a dialogue. Like, people most would just throw insults at you. For me, I've been having a easier time talking, not to the far, far, far left, but I do have an easier time talking to some, of the less hinged progressives, I mean, but if somebody's like far, far, far left, and they, the people who think that everybody's a fascist, well, they're flat out impossible to talk to. But it's easier to talk to people who are not that extreme, and they're the ones who would, bring up some good points. But Twitter's full of, you're an idiot, you're a moron, you're ugly, you're dumb, and it's kind of a lot like, well, the only thing you're doing is wasting my time. I don't need this clogging up my notifications. And it's like you're about to get blocked or muted, not because I'm offended. It's like, it's unoriginal. It's like, do you honestly think that you're the first person that insulted me before? I just want you to stop clogging up my notifications.
The thing is, like, when they're insulting, a lot of those insults are just personal attacks, right? They'll just be like, you're ugly, you're dumb. Like, when you go to personal attacks like that, they're called ad hominems. And from at that point on, there's no reason to have a conversation. You can say, once you make those ad hominems, you have no argument. So why are we still talking? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're really clogging up my notifications. If I see you like 50 times, if you're going to call me a moron over and over and over and over and over again, I'm just going to block you because you're clogging up my notifications. And it's like, why are we still having this convo? You made it clear you think I'm a moron, then leave, or you made it clear that you think I'm a liar, then there's no real conversation to be had. It's kind of a lot like, it's like, if you think I'm a liar, why are you talking to me? Get lost. But I would say that, like, somebody like Shoehead, though, have you seen, I don't know if you've seen her video Hell World, where she showed like cops being abusive, and it's like, I would acknowledge that, but however, with that, I need to add like a caveat, because you also got to keep in mind that America is a large country. There's like 300 and roughly 330 million people living in the US. So it's kind of a lot like, is it really because it's kind of like America is so large that a cop somewhere is doing something bad, and it could be a small percentage of cops. It could be like
what you're saying is it's not that it's like rampant, widespread racism and police brutality. Is that because of the population size as it is, it's actually all we're seeing is we're seeing more of it. That doesn't mean that it's happening more, or it's just that we're getting better at covering it. We're getting better at recording them and catching them in the act. Like, proportionally speaking, it might just turn out that actually less than 0.01% do that, but they're overrepresented in the media because we have cell phones with cameras we didn't used to. It like the ability to document police brutalities. If you were to go back, say 10, 15, 20 years, you would see exponentially more cases like that. But instead you see it just looks like it's a perception issue. This kind of argument that you're making, Brett Weinstein made, and what is the name of that? Oh crap! I gotta look at.
Well, I mean, I found it on BitChutes. Like I saw an anarchist making this argument, and I thought, like, wow, like that's a really great argument. Like, he says, like, let's say, he talked about population, and it's kind of like, let's just say that you recorded redheads being abusive. It's kind of like the fact that there are 8 billion people in this world. If you record some redhead being abusive to a dog or animals, you can make redheads look really, really terrible when really it's because there's like 8 billion people. And it's the same thing as with cops. It's kind of like we have, in America, there's 330 million people in America, roughly. And there's a good chance that if you look back 15 years ago, cops were worse than they
I
are now.
guarantee you they were. I guarantee you they were. Like I said, it's just we're getting better at catching them in the act. So we're seeing more of it. It is a perception issue. Once we catch it, we can make the video go viral and people see it. And it's kind of like with the school shootings. And like it might seem like the school shootings and mass shootings are becoming more and more frequent, but again, it's a perception issue. Like population wise, it's actually much smaller, but again, we got more media that have a focus on that. It's like anytime there is a mass shooting, suddenly all the news agencies get an alert, and then they start broadcasting it, and now everybody knows what's going on in this small town, where before maybe something like that would happen and they didn't cover it as much. Does that mean it wasn't happening? No, it just meant that it wasn't national news or global news. But now something like that happens, everybody in the world knows it happens, and that changes the reality for us. It makes us feel like there's more of an imminent danger as we see more and more of it, like it's happening here, which is why, like I've seen this. Do you remember the New Zealand shooter?
Yeah, I do remember the New
Okay,
Zealand.
so if you read his manifesto, and I did, he was reacting to what was going on in the U.S. as though it were happening where he was. So the thing about the internet is it's done a very good job of dissolving borders and closing distance, so that whatever happens, it feels like it happens here and right now. So as long as we share like the internet connection, right? We all get an internet connection. As long as we share a common tongue, then we get to share those experiences in real time. And so as something happens, like let's say you're documenting the culture war, or you're documenting mass shootings, or whatever you're documenting, you're keeping a close eye on this. Maybe you've got particular channels that focus on this, like Tim Pool will focus on the culture war. The more they cover it, the more it seems like, wow, this is getting out of hand. Does it mean it really is? No, but they're getting better at covering it. So if that's all you're seeing, like 24/7, you're going to get a real sense of dread, and you're going to react to it. And part of the problems that we have right now is, I'm sure maybe you've read The Coddling of the American Mind. If not, you should. But Jonathan Haidt talks about how we're conditioned to catastrophize. And so if you plug in all this coverage, everything seems like the end of the world. We are conditioned to react to it as though it were a real, clear and present danger to us, and there is no hope except for something extreme, right? We're supposed to, I think we're being conditioned to react to this stuff as though they are existential threats. And this is both on the left and the right. So the more we see, we have to fix this now, because like, if you think about, like, trans women are dying in the streets, right? This is a thing that it's way overblown, but you hear this. Trans rights act. A lot of trans girls are also sex workers, and sex workers in general don't have a very good mortality rate. But because of the way they cover it, and because if you're tribalist, you're not likely to think critically. You're going to take whatever someone gives you, and as long as it matches your model of the way the world works, you're going to eat it up as it is, by wholesale, and you continue to react to it and perpetuate it. You share it. But you're going to treat that, if it's a threat, you're going to treat that as an overblown threat, right? So that happens on the left, and it absolutely happens on the right. And I think that honestly, this kind of thing is by design. Part of it is the platforms, because the platforms are really good echo chambers. Like if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, they are echo chambers. You get to pick your friends, you get to pick the people you follow, you get to pick the people you hear, the stories you hear about, and you get to hear more of it. And that can have a very radicalizing effect. It can change the way you think. So, sorry, I'm not trying to rant.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, because I'm on a cell phone, you broke up a little bit here and there, so I didn't catch some of it. But I read the article, The Coddling of the American Mind, because the Atlantic, basically gave a summary of the coddling of American mind, and it's like a list of cognitive thought distortions, like what if, catastrophizing, a black and white mindset, and whatnot. It just has a list of things to be mindful of, because you probably are engaging in a cognitive thoughts distortion without realizing.
You're completely right. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And this is something that college actually, instead of helping you to overcome those cognitive distortions, they help enforce them. They reinforce those cognitive distortions.
I was just thinking this yesterday because I read this article a long time ago, but it's either deleted or I lost it, because it's like I can't find it again, because it's kind of a lot like, it's almost like they're just indoctrinating college students to just be, cultural social justice warriors or culture warriors, like they're not really exposed to different thoughts and whatnot. In fact, even there's one video that should still be up, and it's Ben Shapiro in Congress. And you would get to see different people in Congress talk about free speech. And then there's this one comedian, and he asked, like all of the people a question. It's kind of a lot like, how many of you are a utilitarian, and how many of you are like this, and how many of you are that. And it's kind of like you study all of these philosophies, but your average, American is going to be a Christian, and you should, understand your fellow man than some ancient Greek philosopher,
I mean, that's true. That is true. I think that we do tend to over prioritize some things. Like we can nerd out on all the wrong things. So like right now, I am enveloped in the culture war. And it seems inescapable. It seems like that might be the only thing I'm talking about. When I get home, I get online, I get on Twitter, and I deal with the culture war, right? There's always something that some TRA or Pink News or something in the LGBT, some radical leftist says that's going to tick me off, and I have to speak up about it. And that seems to be my life now. Like, why am I prioritizing that? Why is it all I can talk about is the like this culture war, or why is it all I can talk about are the people I look up to on Twitter, like Brett Weinstein is one of those. Like, I love that guy. His wife Heather Heying, I love her. She's awesome. But why is it I can't connect with my neighbor, right? Why is it I'm not making it more of an effort to learn more about people around me? It's because, like, right now, this is taking priority one. The future of our country, like the future, like our future. It feels like this is the most important thing, and maybe it is. Maybe it is. Like right now, I think like this ideological warfare that we're in, and it's multiple ideologies. But I feel like if I don't focus on this, I'm going to be in a Red Queen scenario, and I'm going to fall behind. I'm not going to catch up, and it's not like fear of missing out. I mean, like, I'm going to fall behind in the ability to actually have a positive effect on the outcome. And I don't think I even can have a really positive effect. I don't think that I'm going to be able to change anything at all. But I kind of feel like I have to try, which is why I'm willing to risk making videos like the last one I made that is likely to get me canceled for being a so-called transphobe. This is the most important thing for a lot of us right now. Our ideologies, or our reaction to particular ideologies. Like, I'm not a very ideological person, but I'm very much anti-authoritarian, and I have a problem with how irrational some of the players are that are trying to take power are being, and I feel like I have to react. I'm probably being someone's pawn right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably playing into someone's game. Maybe it's Bill Gates. Maybe it's George Soros. Maybe us having this conversation right now is exactly what they want. Maybe it's not, though, because I'm white and you're not white, and we're supposed to hate each other, right? Because I thought, isn't that what's supposed to be? Like, we're supposed to have.
You're racist. You're so racist. Cancel your cancel. Get out of here right now. Get the heck out.
But yeah, it's like it seems like right now we're supposed to be going full identitarian, and I almost feel like it's by design to tear this country apart. And I also see it happening also on a global level, and I feel like, honestly, it is part of a singular movement which has not yet been revealed. But that singular movement is to homogenize the world in some way, to get us all on the same page, like culturally and ideologically. And that scares me, actually, because I like diversity. I think that countries need to be diverse, and like they should be free to be, like, if America wants to be, an asshole country, an asshole eccentric country, that's fine. And you have an Asian country that wants to be reserved, that's fine too. Like, I like the idea of having your own systems that work for you, and if it works, great. But the problem I really have is like centralizing everything, getting everybody doing the same thing in one big monoculture. I feel like that makes us very vulnerable. It makes us vulnerable as a species. It makes us vulnerable as a population. It's very stagnating, is how I feel. It's like if you got multiple systems, they're doing their own thing. This is why I kind of like support smaller government. It's because what works for one smaller government doesn't necessarily work for another. And having a blanket policy that says everybody's going to do the same thing, that might not work. That might end up being what shuts down the town, right? It might be what causes a whole city to have massive dropouts in education. Like, kids are going to be like, nope, we're not going to do this. We can't do it. We're not smart enough, or whatever. Like Common Core, right? When Common Core swept the nation, confuse the hell out of a lot of students. Now, for some kids, Common Core works. For some kids, Common Core makes sense because they can't learn in traditional ways. But for most kids, the traditional ways, they exist for a reason. Maybe you should teach that, but do it on a city by city basis, or independent school district basis, whatever. But these blanket policies, I like smaller government. I'm ranting now. Sorry.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of things. I don't really know what to respond to because she brought up a lot of different things. But one thing I remember you saying is that sometimes we could nerd out on the wrong thing. But that is also why I thought you did a better job yesterday because most people haven't read up on what happened, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. So it's kind of like on YouTube the most popular thing on YouTube is what's currently happening in the present. It's kind of like right now, everybody's talking about Nick Cannon going on some anti-Semitic rants, and it's also why I there was like me, it was Tyler Preston, and it was like your boy Pat, and it's why we were all speaking out against the activists, because they were like, listen to Black voices, uplift Black voices, and we kept saying, like Black people are not a monolith, and we are not all angels. We're not perfectly good little angels. It's kind of a lot like, believe it or not, racist Black people exist. Like, well, finally you had to learn the hard way because, like we got called, Uncle Tom, Coon, race traitor, sellout, white supremacists, neo-Nazis. And now they had to learn the hard way that, yes, Black anti-Semites exist. I guess you should have listened to us. I guess you should have listened to us instead of going like, oh, no, 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 you're an Uncle Tom. Like, no, 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 no. We white people are the center of all evil. There's a black hole in the center of the galaxy, and it's all white people's fault. White people are to blame for every evil that goes on into this world. And it's like, look, racist Black people exist, and now they know of the whole tips. Now they are like paying more attention to Louis Farrakhan. Now they're paying attention and seeing that, oh yeah, like Nikki Cannon is an anti-Semite. Guess you should have listened to us instead of calling us.
You just have to listen to Ilhan Omar. She spouted some very racist, anti-Semitic things herself, and just the way that she, like, famous quote about what happened with 9/11, some people did something, is how she described 9/11. It's like, no, that's not what happened. It wasn't some people, it was radical Islam. But she's very biased, and she's not gonna actually say the truth because that would hurt her cause. Like she wants to be an advocate for Islam and all that. So she can't say, well, these were Islamic extremists. She can't say that. Or when she says anti-Semitic things, she's not going to actually admit that it was anti-Semitic. She won't even own it. She could. And you know what? Some people might actually respect her more. Like, even though you might oppose her, you could at least respect her for being honest about her feelings. She can't even do that. But like, yeah, we do see this kind of thing like all the time. And it's usually the ones pointing it out are conservatives. But if you're not right wing, you're not going to hear it. But fortunately, we do have people of color that are actually speaking up about it. That's great. And I like what you said. Like, you're not a monolith, and like no one's a monolith. Like, white people aren't a monolith. White people are so diverse. Like, everybody's diverse. Like, you've got many different cultures in this country. We're a melting pot. You've got people from many different backgrounds, even just like by states, right? Someone who's from the South is going to have very different personality from someone from the North, right? Very different values, and there's a trade-off. Some good, some bad, according to your taste, like however you perceive that to be. But like, this idea that like, oh, all white people are bad. No, all white people aren't bad. All Jews aren't bad. All blacks aren't bad. No one is bad. Humans are generally good. And even the crap that's going on with social justice, people actually think they're doing the right thing. And I think that's actually kind of the most dangerous part about it, is it's because of how good natured they are that they're actually committing some of the worst evils, because they think they're doing it for our own good. If you go back to the whole transgender thing, like people trying to transition kids, they think they're doing it for kids' goods. It's not really true though. Like they're not being objective. Kids cannot determine their gender. Transitioning a child and preventing them from seeking therapy to really determine if they're even transgender, which they call that reparative or conversion therapy. They call that conversion therapy, just trying to make sure that they're even transgender. Like they put a lot of roadblocks in the way. These trans rights activists and these woke parents, right? They're all doing it for our own good. That's what makes it so dangerous. It's no different from any religion. A lot of Christians.
Oh my goodness, exactly. I view it like a religion. Like, I mean, have you ever sat back and just read Twitter's terms of service? Have you ever just sat back and just read? Oh, I would recommend, you sitting back and reading, Twitter's terms of service, because there is a lot of things that you just can't say. There's just so many things that. But if you watch Tim Pool, you probably already know of all of the seemingly innocuous tweets. That if you say it, you're gone. If you say the wrong, you must have the right opinion. Like, there are opinions that you're just not allowed to have. You're just not allowed, like, point blank, period. You're not allowed to have certain opinions, because I think I can say it on YouTube because Temple said it on YouTube. So Temple, it feels comfortable enough saying it on YouTube. Like, people would say, like, men are men, or women are women, or men aren't women, and they'll just get suspended.
Yeah,
they'll get suspended, and
so on social media platforms where you've got algorithms that pick up keywords, right? Yeah, they will ban you, especially if you can go right to it and report it. It's harder to do that on platforms like YouTube for some reason, but it's still been done. But yeah, like something that is like simple, like basic biology. Like on Twitter, you cannot say that men aren't women, which is it's how what's his name, Graham Linehan and Megan Murphy got deplatformed from Twitter, is by saying those words: men aren't women. Now, if you're trans, that makes sense, because if you're a trans woman and you're like binary, you can say men aren't women because you don't believe that trans women are men.
Well, you got to understand, we're not really going by biology. We're going by the woke radical left. So a person like you and a person like Blair White or Rosa Dunn, you would be transphobes, self-hating trans, bigots. You just hate yourselves, or you just want to be the token trans or whatnot. And from what I've seen, non-binary trans people have a much louder voice than trans people. So it's kind of like a non-binary person could cancel you because they are seen as the bigger victim than you. Because like Blair White was with some Vice thing, and then the person doing the Vice interview kept cutting her off and be like, hey, how do you feel? She would just check on the feelings of the non-binary person. And if you say the wrong thing, a non-binary person could get you kicked off Twitter. Like, did you just call me by the wrong pronouns? Because I'm telling you, I've had this experience on Twitter. There's this person, who was bald-headed, bald, no hair at all, had a long beard, was muscular.
I think that I saw that one I saw the picture of the one you're talking about. Yeah, that looks like a dude. And when you're not even trying to pass as the other gender, how do you expect anybody to use those pronouns? Like, you got to at least work at it, show some effort, show that you're being genuine. But it seems to me, my perception is they get off on the power of forcing you to say something that isn't true. They have that power. And if you don't say something that's not true, then they know that they can shut you down.
Yeah, it's basically it's like a gaslighting, and not only gaslight, but it's like Twitter just helps it along. It's kind of a lot like you can just look at the picture, and it's kind of like it's clearly a man. You have a bald head, you have a beard, you're wearing a wife beater, you're all muscled out, you're not even trying. It's kind of like, oh my goodness, my pronouns are she, her. How could you not tell? My username is Elizabeth. You're supposed to know I'm a woman. And it's kind of like, but you have a bald head and a beard, and you're wearing a wife beater, and you're showing off all your muscles, and it's like I'm supposed to know how, but it's kind of like it's kind of like they have the power.
Yeah, like look at what's that guy's name? Sam? Is it Sam Smith? Is that the celebrity? The not so-called non-binary celebrity? I think his name is Sam Smith. And you look at him, he's got a beard, he's got male body hair, doesn't even wax, doesn't manscape. He's actually got a dad bod, right? And what, like some of the pictures I've seen where they're promoting him being non-binary, all you see is like a little bit of eye makeup, and that's it. Maybe some glitter, that's it. Sorry, but that doesn't make you non-binary. All that makes you is a man who's being gender non-conformative. They're trying to pretty themselves up like girls. That doesn't mean you're non-binary, though. Like, gay men do that all the time, and they didn't feel the needs to declare themselves as trans or non-binary. Although, like I said in my last video, some of them are starting to do that. Some of them absolutely are. Like, my perception is that they think that we're running some kind of scam being trans, and they want in on it. They want to get the straight guys too.
Yeah, they're now calling themselves women, or they're calling themselves trans, and it's why I bring you back to the video, of that guy saying, why I'm no longer non-binary, because he says that those people will be like date them publicly to all of their fans. But as soon as, the cameras are off, the mask slips, and they're like different people. Like, it's like dramatically different on private. Like, privately, it's like, oh, he, him, I'm just playing a character. But the cameras are on, it's like one personality. It's like Jekyll Hyde. It's kind of like the cameras are on. It's like, how come people don't like me? How come people don't respect me? But the cameras are off. They're actually mean, rude, vicious, backstabby. They like to hurt people.
Yeah. And well, there's that, and there's also like their behavior online too. Like, when you're online, you can be a very different person online because no one gets to know the real you. Like so, some of these keyboard warriors, like some of the most vocal TRAs, they might be completely silent in the real world. They won't have the courage to actually say what they want to say, or be as vicious, aggressive as they are online. They might actually be cowards. They might be like beta males, right? Weak little beta males that have no effect on society. But the one thing they can affect is your status on the platform. And that's where they have power. Like, they might work dead-end jobs. In fact, that might be the motivation for a lot of these people, is the fact that, well, this is a kind of a thing I've been sort of mulling over for a while, but it seems like a lot of counterculture, and LGBT is counterculture. You can argue it whether against or whatever, but I really feel like LGBT has become counterculture. Like people have said, like goth and punk. People used to be goth and punk and whatever, even nerds. Now they're all LGBT. Now they're non-binary, right? So it is counterculture. And I think that, like, this ultimately comes from, like, in kids going to schools that are overpopulated, like a class of 30 or more students, way too many in the population, but a lot of the kids do go to those kinds of schools, and they see that, hey, I'm not unique. I have to do something to stand out. And they do. And they have to sort of stand out to fit in even. And in the real world, once they get jobs, they have to kind of do the same thing. They realize that, like, the kinds of jobs they're going to get, they're just a cog in a machine. They're redundant. And so they're struggling with their redundancy, and they have to do something to feel like they have some kind of power, some kind of value, something to contribute in life. And so then they go online because maybe they're shy and they're not assertive enough to actually or confident enough to make real friends or get a mate. So online, that's where they get what they need out of socializing. But then they realize that they can have power. Maybe they're cunning enough to know how to manipulate the system, and they get off to that kind of power. That's where I think a lot of that's coming from.
Yeah, like me, I've had a really bad experience. Like me and Tyler Preston, we had a really bad experience with this TRA called like Not Cursed. I think, have you heard of Not Cursed
Oh
on
God,
Twitter?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like okay, Desmond, it's amazing, right? The controversy around that kid is kind of like, it's kind of like we were just saying that, it's kind of like we don't like him. Like he seems to be in the strip club and taking his, dress off in the strip club and not cursed in her lackeys or goons or like it's not stripping, it's just an outfit's reveal. And it's actually really normal. It's really
Oh,
normal. You're just transphobic. You're a bigot. You hate trans people. And it's like, I bet you'd be supportive if a girl was to do the same thing. And it's like, no, like me, I was like, hey, I actually spoke up about girls in beauty pageants. Like they don't seem to be aware of the Honey Boo Boo controversy or whatnot, or there has been controversy of girls in beauty pageants dressed like Pretty Woman, like Julia
did,
Roberts
let
and
me
Pretty
ask you,
Woman
did
looking
you
like
ever
a
see the
puppet.
film? Do you ever see the film Little Miss Sunshine?
No.
Oh, you should, because it kind of touches on that. It's a film about this little girl that gets to be in a beauty pageant, and she realizes, and her grandpa, was it her grandpa? I think someone in their family realizes what it really is, and they end up sort of they reveal to the parents exactly what the kids are doing by going as extreme as they can. And I think what is that song that they did? It was um, the song like Super Freak. The song Super Freak.
Oh,
She's super freaky.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
the girl was dancing to that song, and it's kind of they're trying to reveal this is what these are. This is the grotesque show that this has become. It it's not something to be celebrated. Even Always Sunny in Philadelphia sort of played on that one too, because they were showing how they are the great place to attract pedophiles, because
Yeah,
you get little girls to dress up in skimpy outfits and wear adult makeup, and yeah, you're going to attract pedophiles. It's really gross. And so yeah, people have been calling this stuff out for a while, actually.
yeah,
But
but not cursed and her goons or lackeys that just want to go along with like, oh yeah, I bet you don't speak out against beauty pageants. It's like, yeah, we actually do speak out against that. They just keep putting words in
and you
your
know what
mouth.
that is? That's called a whataboutism, right? Instead of actually addressing the problem and saying, yeah, you got a point, they're saying, but what about this? Well, no, it's still wrong. Even if no one was saying anything about it, it's still wrong. So you at least acknowledge that. Don't say what about. What about doesn't change how wrong it is. So a little boy being conditioned to dance for money, stripping off like that in front of men, older men, it's like it's grooming is what it is, and it's really gross. And he's not the only one to have done that. There was another child drag queen who was featured in some kind of magazine, and he was the photo that they took was him with this drag queen who's naked, and he's going like, oh, and the whole point is that it's risque, it's wrong, it's taboo, it's like this is obviously forbidden for a reason. So, and I guess in the gay community, oh, that's fine and everything, but the reality is it's gross. It is pedophilia. It doesn't. You can try to paint it up however you want. It's still wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and
most straight or gay will post it, and I can tell you that like I've got lesbian friends, and lesbians do like the lesbian friends I have don't go along with that part of the gay culture at all. That's just isolated to the drag queens that are over the top.
Yeah, and that was my problem with Not Cursed. The Not Cursed wouldn't listen to me and Tyler. That person was just too busy calling us transphobes and bigots, and they're little lackeys too. Because I don't know if you ever came across that account, but that person just accused Sophia Nawaz. I think she's another trans person. She
Yes, saw that
accused her
tweet
of
today.
doxing. Yeah, it looks like she accused Sophia Nawaz of doxing Dear Girl. And Sophia was like, well, I never doxed anybody. I never doxed anybody. I never celebrated doxing, never joked about it or whatnot. And it's kind of like Not Cursed. It's like one of the meanest, most vicious, most annoying like TRAs out there.
Yeah, actually, and this person is responsible for getting me on multiple block lists. Like I'm on, last I checked, like 73 block lists, and she's responsible for a lot of those. It's because I didn't put up with any of her bullshit, and I won't, and no one should. All this person does is troll. She's an online troll. That's it. So like it seems like she goes out of her way to find people who are ideologically opposed to her. She goes out of her way to find like rational trans girls, and she'll criticize their posts, and then people come to their defense, and then she trolls the shit out of them, and then she sends all of her friends or maybe sock puppet accounts, who knows, after them. And the result of this is that a lot of people end up getting on block lists. They learn who is going to be ideologically on their side and those who will not bend the knee. And I'm one of those people who won't bend the knee, so I don't get to see her posts. I only get to see them when someone sends a screen grab, like a screen capture. That's it. I don't get to see it anymore. Not that I really care to see it anyway, because all that comes out of her is garbage.
Yeah, I heard that she used to be different. I heard that she used to be very different. I heard that she used to be friends with Blair White. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that she used to be, an anti-feminist. I heard that she used to hang out with the anti-SJW crowd, and she used to be friends with Blair White, and she used to hang out with those different people. And I do think I caught her, like, I do think she was nice to me once, but then it's kind of like she just did a 180 one day, and she went from being like one type of person to just, I think it's, because it's kind of like you get lots of attention from being loud and obnoxious. Think about taking down MRAs. To take down MRAs just as loud and obnoxious, or to a certain extent. I mean, he has good points too, but Vosh, or whatever, Vosh as well, who's loud and obnoxious. It's kind of like, I remember watching a debate between Blair White and Vosh, and he just kept calling her a liar the whole time. Like, you're lying, Blair. You're lying, Blair. You're lying. Like, well, why did you invite her to do a live stream with you in the first place? If you're just going to call Blair White's a liar, like 50 different times in a live stream, it's kind of like, just leave her alone. Because it's kind of like, if you invite me to a live stream and all you do is just, call me a liar nonstop, I'm just going to be like, you know what? I don't have to put up with this, so I won't. I'm just going to, leave. And I don't care what people say about me. I wouldn't care what you or, your acolytes would say about me. I'm just going to leave, because I had to give Blair White kudos, for just being able to remain calm and even tempered while he just called her a liar 50 different times.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put up with that either. Like, after being called liar like twice, 3 times, I'd be like, okay, we're done. No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to play that game. Like, maybe it scores points with your audience because no one says that. You don't. It's one, is rude. Two, it's denying someone the benefit of the doubt. Instead of saying, I think you're wrong here, you're actually saying you're lying, which that implies intent to deceive. that is absolutely immoral for someone to do that, especially knowing that they've got a large viewership that is going to be persuaded by that interaction. I think that's that is cruel, unusual, and no one should have to put up with that at all. So
Yeah, I had to give, Blair kudos for putting up with it. And she remained calm. She remained even temper. She didn't raise her voice. She remained polite. Well, I didn't finish it, so I managed to get 15 minutes into it. But it's kind of like if I were her, I'd be like, you know what? You think I'm a liar. You're wasting my time. Goodbye. I wouldn't put up with it. And then I would just click the block button, and I just would have moved on with my life because I'm not putting up with it. And I don't even put up with that on Twitter. If you call me a liar, I'm either going to block you or mute you, because if you're calling me a liar, how could we have a conversation if you just think I'm a dishonest? Because yeah, you're assigning intent, you're assigning motive, and it's kind of like you're telling me I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my time and energy, on you. Because if we're going to move forward and come to understand each other, if I'm going to understand you and you're going to understand me, we have to give each other the benefit of the doubt, and we have to presume that the other is telling the truth.
mm-hmm.
Because yeah, otherwise I'm just going to either block you or mute the conversation. I'm just not going to sit around tolerating being called a liar.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. It's not that different than just the ad hominems that I deal with online. Like, I will mute a conversation, and someone goes out of their way to talk crap to me, like not even like hi, hello, addressing some things. No, they'll just like outright go straight to an ad hominem. That's like an instant block. I'm going to block you if our very first interaction you're going straight to personal attacks. That merits a block. I think that's fair. I mean, it shouldn't have to. It shouldn't be that way. I don't like blocking people. I really hate it. But you're not encouraging anyone to have dialogue. All you're trying to do is win points for your little tribe. Sorry, I'm not going to play that game.
I think you touched on something like very important, because I think that much of the internet has changed with Blocked by Steve Shives. Really, before Blocked by Steve Shives, like when MySpace was popular and back when LiveJournal was popular, if you get blocked and whine about it, people be a lot like, well, what did you do to get blocked? And, you're not entitled to, anybody's time of conversation. And then the Blocked by Steve Shives happened. But the reason why it was interesting is because he blocked his own fans. When you block, your own fans and your own supporters, that sticks out. Or when you block people for respectfully disagreeing, it's kind of like that. It's a bit shocker. Like this person's just nice the whole entire time, and that was what made it shocking. And people, what was originally happened is that people would be a lot like, I respectfully disagree with you, or they would take screenshots of them being polite as possible, but disagreeing and just getting blocked, even though they were polite. But now it's kind of like people would be as rude as possible and be like, that pussy blocked me. Well, you were rude. You deserved it. I mean, it's
that's literally what they do. I've seen that too. I myself have blocked people, and then sometimes I'll be like, oh, maybe I don't need to block them. And then I find out what their tweet would be like, well, maybe I should continue to block them. I'm going to re-block them. And like, if someone is particularly vicious, I'm not going to just block them. I will first mute them, and then I will block them. And if in some cases, I might even have to report them depending on the things that they're saying. Like sometimes someone will actually threaten you, right? And then you actually do have to report those kinds of tweets. And the thing is, like, I kind of feel like if I don't do those things, even preemptively, they're going to do it to me for something that isn't even wrong, right? Knowing that the community standards constantly change, they'll report me over just saying something that's innocuous, or should be innocuous, but is still politically incorrect, and therefore can get me deplatformed. So I'm like, well, I might as well report this person and try to get them shut up, for, at least for a little while, before they can do the same thing to me. Because like, I know I'm right, I haven't done anything wrong, but I got to preemptively attack them before they do something to me. Like, I'm not like someone that goes out of my way to block people, but when someone like reveals to be a real threat to my presence online, like especially Twitter, like I love Twitter. That's my favorite platform. And if someone threatens that for me, this is where, believe it or not, this is really dumb, but that's where I get a lot of my news. Like I follow people from all over the different spectrums, from all over the political quadrant, right? You know, like libertarian left or authoritarian right. Like I'll follow all of them just to get an idea of what they're talking about, so I can stay informed. And if someone's going to threaten that by reporting something, or like just simply saying, trans women are trans women, they're not women, they're their own category, should be okay to say that. But these people will try to get people like me deplatformed, and they will report it. So if the first interaction is something vicious and maybe threatening, then yeah, I'm gonna try and get them at least shadow banned, because I know shadow banning is a thing. Although I can at least admit one thing though, there is a risk at shadow banning, and I've actually talked about this in previous videos before. I'm aware, but I don't think it's going to make much difference with some of these guys. But I'm aware that with some people, at least with good people, being shadow banned is problematic, because it turns you into a ghost. And what I mean by that is, like, you feel like you're doing things on the platform and no one's noticing, and suddenly you're irrelevant. And that is a very isolating, alienating feeling. And it's the kind of thing that will, I think, actually radicalize someone to do something kind of stupid and scary. Like, I think maybe some of these mass shooters might have been deplatformed at some point. And that's when they went all nihilistic and like, fuck it. If I'm not going to have an impact online, because maybe they don't know how to do it in real life, they don't know how to have a social life in real life. It's like, if I don't mean anything online in my social life, then why not just end it all? Like, so that is always a real risk. And sometimes I think better of trying to get them shadow banned. But if they're going to be aggressive to me, like, I'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to preemptively block and report you if you're going to do something really stupid. So,
well, anyway. I mean, I've done the same thing when it comes to people like take down MRAs, because you know that take down MRAs is pretty much notorious for trying to get people banned off Twitter. Like, they're notorious, like they brag about it. Like, if you go through their timeline, they brag about all of the people that they successfully gotten off Twitter. So like, when they dogpiled me twice, I just, mass reported all of the people who interacted with me. And it's kind of like they stopped doing it. They've learned to stop. Like, that's a great rate to learn a lesson, because sure, I didn't manage to successfully report taking down MRAs, but I have successfully reported their goons. And then, like, after I successfully reported their goons, take down MRAs, no longer quote tweets me. That's nice. A good way to get people to stop quote tweeting you, because
then again, go ahead.
Because again, like, he does it
then again, maybe
he does it on purpose to get you to. I think the purpose is to get you to be really upset and be like, fuck you, I hope you, end yourself. I think he was just hoping that I would either delete my accounts or privatize my accounts. And it's like, look, I've been using Twitter for a long time. I know that you're trying to get me to either delete my accounts, privatize my accounts, or you're trying to get me to say something stupid so that you can report me, because he brags. He brags about, like, I think he bragged about getting Sargon of Akkad suspended off Twitter, and he would brag about all of the people he got suspended off Twitter. And it's like, I ain't playing with this shit. I will fight fire with fire.
Yeah, so, like, if it comes down to it, you fight dirty, right? That's sometimes you feel like you have to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you a direct message on Twitter, and I don't know if you've ever done this before, but I sent you the link to a tweet of mine, and you can respond to it. But basically, you say at block list, what block lists, and it'll let you know if you're being blocked. If you're on someone's block list, it's possible. I was gonna say, like, it's possible that the reason why they're not quote tweeting you is because they put you on a block list.
Oh, they're quote tweeting me because they put me on a block list.
No, they're not. Maybe they're not quote tweeting you anymore because they decided, let's block her, let's put her on a block list, and it means that a lot of people aren't going to hear what you have to say, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. Like, I noticed that, like, I used to get a lot of heat from TRAs. Now I don't get as much of it, mostly because I'm on all these block lists that they're subscribed to. So all of my tweets, for the most part, get to be viewed by people within a particular echo chamber, unless I particularly tweet out to someone who is not that ideological. So like I'll follow people who are left wing, but those left wing personalities haven't yet subscribed to those block lists because they're not invested in them particularly. So the ones, like, the block lists I'm on are basically turf block lists. So
well, the last time I checked, I'm not blocked by Takedown MRAs. In fact, I had to mute Takedown MRAs because even though he stopped quote tweeting, he stopped quote tweeting me. He only did it twice because I kept reporting all of his fans. He would still, taunt me here and there. Like, he would, sometimes reply to me with taunting messages. So it's like, you know what? I'm just going to mute you at this point because you want to stop taunting me, So he's a harasser. So it's like, you know what? I'm just going to mute you so that you would no longer bother me anymore.
Well, I mean, that's what you got to do.
Yeah. You said, man, I wish I remember what you said earlier because I wanted to comment on it, but I forgot what you said, but I really wanted to comment on it.
About what? What did it pertain to?
I forgot, but you said something and I really wanted to respond, but then I didn't. I got to talking about Takedown MRA, but I forgot what you said. I think it was something you said before. You said, I'm going to send you a DM on Twitter, and I think you said something earlier before that. But I just forgot what you said.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. Okay, let me ask you a question. How did Lapis know to send you the DM to watch the video?
Oh, okay. How did I meet Lapis would be this. I've basically was stalked by one of her friends. Well, ex-friend, she told me that she's no longer friends with a guy, but I was stalked by one of her friends for like 10 months straight. And not only that, but I also got impersonated, like there was actually this account pretending to be me, and then like Lapis was a lot like, okay, you are impersonating her. That is, over the top disgusting, it's like, like people get mad online, people get angry, but impersonating somebody online. Now, he didn't just stalk me, he also stalked another friend of hers by the name of Owen McDonald. Now he stalked Owen McDonald for 2 years straight, and let me tell you why he stalked Owen McDonald. He stalked Owen for calling him, I think it was that he called Owen called him a racist. And just because Owen McDonald called him a racist he stalked Owen McDonald for 2 years straight. And, it's kind of like Lapis and I just believe that he's a racist. And the reason why we believe he's racist is because there are plenty of white people who called him a racist. So it's kind of like, how is it that 10 different white people called you a racist and you don't care at all? But as soon as a black person called you a racist, you're going to stalk him for 2 years. In what sense does it make to stalk him for 2 years when you could just block him and move on with your life?
That is very, very weird. Um, I I kind of want to know more about this guy, but at the same time, I kind of don't. Like, he sounds like trash.
Well, me and Owen McDonald did a live stream on his channel where I actually had screenshots. I had screenshots. I had archive links of him impersonating me, harassing me. But on top of that, I brought in a witness. Now the witness was Owen, not Owen, but Donald, but it was Oreo. Now Oreo was saying that he was talking to Random Lee's or whatever. It's like my Twitter name, but with a Z. So it's like a Random Michaelis, but instead of the S to the end, it's a Z, but it looks exactly like
Yeah,
mine. The username is like only one letter
yeah.
off. It's
I've
so
seen that kind of thing
identical.
before.
Yeah, and so like Oreo said, when I was talking to Dad's accounts, I honestly believed I was talking to you. So there were people to come out and vouch for my story, like, no, you were impersonating her and you were trying to convince me that you were her because it's like Owen McDonald was arguing with his accounts and this account was saying that like, no, I'm actually Ran, I am Rand, and this is my side account, and blah, 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 and all that. But like, let me tell you how vicious and dirty it got. They were trying to make it look like me and Ethan and Ralph were sleeping with each other. They were just that disgusting. They were just saying like they were pretending to be me, and they were like acting like I'm all into Ethan Roth, and they were trying to act like me and him were having an affair and we're sleeping with each other and whatnot. And it's kind of like mini.
That's really petty shit. Like, who goes out of their way to, like, in such an elaborate way, to be that petty consistently? Like, that's a very juvenile brain, you know?
Yeah, and the sad thing is he's in his mid-20s. He's not even a teenager. He's in his mid-20s. He's like 25 years old. So he's actually too old to act like that.
Well, maybe he never matured. Maybe he didn't graduate school, and maybe he never socialized properly. So maybe, like, emotionally, he's a teenager. Like, I actually have a brother who's emotionally a teenager, and he still relives the glory days of high school football, even though he didn't really play. But he's got this fantasy in his head of what high school football was for him that doesn't really match up. If you're emotionally immature, like I would say, or emotionally retarded, right? You never, like, there's like a threshold, and like if you don't pass that threshold, you might not ever get past it. My mom is not all that far off. Like, my mom is still basically a teenager in her own head too, and she's never going to grow up, and she's always going to be irresponsible, and she's also always going to be petty. Like, if you don't learn to mature in time, you might never mature. So
Yeah.
that's gross. I'm sorry they had to deal with that.
Yeah, as soon as I get internet connection again, what I could do is I could go to Owen McDonald's channel and I could send you the live stream, and it's just gonna be like, wow, this is so fucked up. You like this guy actually pretended to be me. He's acting like I'm sleeping with Ethan Roth, and Ethan Roth is married too. Like, I don't know if he's still married because I think I saw him in a live stream with Bausch. And well, I didn't watch the whole live stream, but somebody posted a clip of Ethan Roth and Vosh on Twitter, and I think Ethan Roth said ex-wife. But he was married at the time. Not only that, but we live in two different states anyway. Like he lives like halfway across the country for me. It's like, look, Ethan Route is halfway across the country. I wouldn't bother. It's
Yeah.
like, it's unrealistic, but he made he the prospect on, oh my goodness, the prospect on, this is great because you know, I'm at 44% battery high. But now I just get to charge my phone.
Nice.
But I mean, yeah, but it was like kind of like make it look like me and and all that. But it's kind of, like how people gets in Twitter fights. He actually tracked down each and every single last person that I've ever been in a Twitter fight with, which is like creepy. Like he was actually like to
Oh wow.
track down like pretty much each and every single last person I was ever, in a Twitter fights with, and like started following him and promoting his YouTube videos about me. He has a fucking 5-hour live stream about me. He actually
Oh
made
my.
a 5-hour live stream about me, and it's like, this is just so fucking creepy and
Let me
weird.
ask you a question.
You
Like,
know, it,
what kind of, how big is his following?
he's small and tiny. It's why I don't really mention his name.
So,
It's because
no, that makes sense, though. Actually, it does make sense. So this is drama, and this is something that he thinks he can milk to gain an audience, is what it sounds like.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, because it's kind of like on Twitter, he has like only like 100 followers on Twitter,
Oh
something
my
like
God.
that. And on YouTube, he actually grew his channel talking shit about me. So like, who knows? Maybe you're right because on YouTube he only had like 100, like subscribers, but he actually, he like has like reached up to like 600 subscribers talking shit about me. So who knows? Like that was probably what he was after. But
That's
in the end, yeah, it's just really, really creepy because, from my end of the situation, this creepy, crazy psycho has just been stalking me for 10 months long. And it's just really, really creepy. And that is how me and Lapis met each other because
well,
she saw what was going on and she was a lot like, okay, what you're doing is mean, weird, creepy, crazy, and psychotic.
but what also means is that she's actually a pretty decent person. So like my interaction with her, like first of all, going into it, I didn't know what to expect at all, and I was actually recommended from another friend who's an anonymous friend. I don't even know anything about this friend, but I've been in contact with him for a while now. But this friend suggested, hey, maybe you should have a conversation. And not knowing at all what I'm getting into, I'm like, okay, I'm probably setting myself up for failure. But the conversation actually went better than I expected. And even after like we were no longer live, she was very, very cordial. She seems like a legitimately a nice person, and that's actually kind of rare.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like I was really appreciative because I had no idea who she was, and she was friends with a group of people, because like sometimes he had his other friends help, like they're stalking, but they're stalking by proxy, it's kind of like where somebody blocks you, so you have your friends bother, that person on different accounts, so it's kind of a lot like stalking by proxy, like use your friend to pester somebody on your
Yeah,
behalf, and it's like I blocked all of those accounts, so it's kind of like they just got more and more creepy, more and more disturbing, and it reached a point where Lapis is kind of a lot like, okay, this is really weird, creepy, disturbing, you're crossing the line, this is just going way overboard just to be nasty from somebody who lives thousands of miles away from you, somebody who you would never meet in real life unless you stalk them. It's kind of like I wouldn't put it past the guy to try to figure out where I live. I wouldn't, like, it would, as far as he's gone, I wouldn't really put it past him if he looked for my address.
God, that's scary. That is unfortunately the kind of era that we live in. Is people become more comfortable with doxing because they're like, let's let's hurt you where it really hurts the most. Let's jeopardize your job. Let's jeopardize your privacy, your security. Because they know, like if they can't, especially if they can't hurt you online, like personally, like they can't hurt your feelings, they can't get people to stop following you. Okay, fine, then let's send people after you and eliminate the threat that way. That's terrifying, and it's happened unfortunately to a lot of good people, and it's on both sides too. Like doxing isn't unique to people on the left. It's not unique to people on the right. Like people that get doxed and people who do dox, like they're from all spectrums, and I think the kind of people that do this kind of thing are the losers. They're cunning enough to figure out your personal information or weasel out that information from someone you trust, and then they exploit the crap out of that because they have power with that. And like I said before, like I don't think these people have any power in any other part of their lives. They probably work at a dead-end job, maybe even a minimum wage job. They're not actually getting anything done in their lives at all. They have no bearing on the course of humanity, but at least they can dox you. At least they can shut you down. They can deplatform you. They can block you. They can silence you in a way that they can't do in the real world because they're just a cog in the machine. That's what I feel like they are. And it tells me that they're among the biggest losers. And it's in that case, like if you can spot them, if you can identify this kind of person, just avoid all contact, like preemptively if possible. I'm not saying necessarily you have to block them, but definitely try not to engage with them. So
Yeah, exactly, because it's shocking how low they're willing to go. And I mean, I think part of it is the era we live in, because it's like when the media started engaging in clickbaity titles. It's kind of like sometimes it seems like even the mainstream media encourages shitty behavior, because it's kind of like there's this Democrats. I don't know. I know he's involved with a D and a C, but I remember it's kind of like I know Michelle Obama said, if when they go low, we go high, and I think he says,
Holter, Eric Holter, the guy that was director of the FBI.
I think he said if they go low, we kick them in the butts or something, or if they go low.
Eric Holder. Hold on, let me look this up. I'm pretty sure I'm right. Let me give me 1 second.
Because I know Michelle Obama said if they go low, we go high. But it's like, no. If they go low, we punch them in the face or something like that.
I'm Googling it. Eric Holder, when they go low, we kick them. That is Eric Holder. And Eric Holder, if I'm not mistaken, was the director of the FBI, but let's find out. He's the one that let the guns walk, if I'm not mistaken. Do you remember that scandal with the FBI? They let guns go across the border, I think, and it found its way into cartels' hands, something like that. He was the Attorney General of the United States. Okay, so Attorney General, so head of the FBI. He's above the director. So, yeah, he's pretty high-ranking official. He's like, is that what Bill Barr is? I'm kind of stupid, but let's see. I think he was succeeded. Yeah, he was succeeded by William Barr. I'm pretty sure. Yep. He was succeeded by William Barr, and obviously we know that William Barr is the one that basically got Trump off of those charges or the whole Russiagate thing. Anyway, yeah. So Eric Holder, he's someone that should know better than to say what he has said.
Yeah, and I feel like, the mainstream media has played its role in escalating situations.
Oh yeah,
Like the
especially
mainstream.
CNN. Oh, go ahead.
The CNN has had its controversies. I forgot what it was. I know that Tim Pool covered some CNN controversial statements.
Oh,
Like they don't believe in civility anymore. I know that there have been people who are big names saying like don't be civil, like do not be civil. When really nowadays it's kind of like it's not so much that I like blocking people, but it's kind of a lot like people just go incredibly low when they don't like you. People have a way to just go as low as they could go, and
yeah.
I feel like people in a way keep themselves worked up, and I feel like people keep themselves angry.
So I think that one of the problems. Okay, so there's a bit of a blessing and a curse, but being online, you can be anonymous, and if you can figure out someone else's real world identity, then you can take their own power of anonymity away from them. And so the blessing is if you're anonymous, you can get away with a lot. If you lose that anonymity, suddenly you're accountable. And suddenly that means that people can see what you're doing, what you're saying, and they may not treat you the same way anymore. Maybe like in the real world, you are a great person. Everybody loves you. You're very amicable. But online, you are a monster. And if people were to learn what kind of monster you are online, you might not have the friends that you have right now, right? So, like, I'm not advocating this at all. But if the scenario were to change where you couldn't have like a user handle, like I'm using self-made woman, and I like that handle because it's kind of works with my own journey. But if it was just Jadis, Ileana, or Jayapi, right? And anybody can Google that because actually I am very Googleable. Like you can, my name's attached to everything, right? But if everybody was like that, if everybody's real name was attached to their accounts, there was no anonymity, then they would be a lot more accountable and they would be a lot less likely to say the extreme things that they say. It is only because they are anonymous. Like people get burner accounts. Like they will literally get a burner account just to talk shit to someone else. And sometimes it actually ends up working in their favor. Sometimes they're doing it not because they even believe what they're saying, but because they're trying to develop clout, because they're trying to show support for one of their other accounts, right? Maybe like they say something on one account, their main account, and then people pile on, so they have to defend themselves, or maybe they say something on one account and they want to make it look like others support that, so they create these sock puppet accounts, right? And if you didn't have that anonymity and it showed that all the sock puppets were the same person, would not have the same effect. They're like, you're just echoing yourself. What are you doing? It's like liking your own tweet. That looks ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of like like when Blair White's accidentally showed that she likes her own video. Like it was the big cringe. Oh, she did it by accident though. She didn't show it though. It's just like, well, yeah, she's just trying to play it cool. Like, well, you gotta like yourself. It's important to love yourself, babies. But it is kind of cringy to like your own videos though.
Yeah, or it's like if you're thumbs upping your own videos, like I would not do that. If people don't like my stuff, then I don't need to play that game. I'll let people, if people really like it, then let them like it, right? Let it speak for itself. Let the work speak for itself. There's no reason to do that on your own now. I think that like at least on Facebook, people do that, or at least did do that for a while because the algorithms worked that way. Like if you didn't like it, if your content wasn't liked by somebody, even if it's yourself or not, then it wouldn't show up in other people's timelines, and then whatever you posted would be going into the void. Like no one would know at all unless they visited your page. So some people would specifically like it just so that others would be able to see it. I don't think that's the case with YouTube videos or even with Twitter. It might be, but I think for the most part, like people don't need to do that. But if people do that, maybe it's because either one, they think that's how the platforms work, or because they're trying to create, or even on a minor level, make it look like there's more support than there actually is. So.
Well, with Blair White's case, it's really weird that I mean, I only knew about it because she took a screenshots of it, or, video recorded, and she accidentally showed it by accident, and she tried to play it out like it's cool, but it didn't get, she has so many subscribers and so many followers, and she already gets like, 3,000, 4,000 upvotes anyway, that one little like wouldn't make one bit of a difference.
It's negligible, yeah. There's no reason to do that.
Yeah, it's
like literally, like if she was a smaller YouTuber, you might say, though, maybe she thinks that this is how her videos are going to get seen. But being a bigger YouTuber, she knows no matter what, if she posts something, people are going to see it, and a lot of people are going to see it. So there's no reason to do that.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense if she had like 20 subscribers in like her own videos, and if her like is the only like there is, then it's like, oh, okay, I'll give you a pass for that. But if you have like, she has nearly like 1 million subscribers, so that one like, is it gonna make one bit of a difference, because it's like so many people are going to see it. There's kind of like out of like like 10,000 likes, that one like is going to make one big difference. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. What was I going to ask you? How did you get involved in the trans community anyway? Like, how did you how did you get connected with any of this? Like, how did people know to cyberstalk you and your connection with Lapis? Like, where did this?
Well, with Lapis, again, like I said, she just helped me with a situation where an ex-friend of hers. Oh, let me find the video, and because my internet is back. My internet is back. So what I am going to do is I am going to find the video by Owen McDonald, and I am going to send you the video where we talked about me getting stuck. I hope I can find Owen, because his channel is talking of. Oh, wait a minute! I found his channel. I finally found his channel, and I'm going to send it to you.
Okay.
Here, it's about to come. Just be on the lookout for it. There, I just sent it to you, and yeah, it just goes into complete detail of my journey being stalked and harassed. It was so creepy and so scary. And the Lapis, she was amazing. She provided a great sense of comfort, and I'm really grateful and appreciative to her, because she was.
Well, a question I have is, like, what circles do you overlap with her? Like we all have like circles, right? Like in the culture world, like I'm connected with conservatives. I'm connected with some ex gender critical, and I'm also connected with the gender critical, right? I've got friends who are now TRAs, who used to be gender critical, but I also have gender critical friends. Like I have people in particular little circles, right? And so I overlap in multiple circles. Like my question is, like, what are your spheres, and how do you interact with Lapis? Like, what, like this person that stalked you and then connected you with Lapis, like where do you intersect? Is my question.
Me and Lapis don't have anything in common.
Oh, like, I mean, you're both left wing though, at least. So there's that. But like the stalker that brought you sort of together is, do you both follow the same kind of people online, or what?
Oh, the stalker was a libertarian.
Oh,
Yeah, so the stalker was a libertarian, and like me, my contents was actually a bit more right wing. My because I liked Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro was like one of my all time favorites as a point. Believe it or not, I used to donate to Sargon of Akkad on Patreon, and then it's kind of
oh,
well, I mean, Sargon, it's a complicated story because I was friends with Christiosity, so it's really, really complicated. And my, oh, like, okay, now I had to explain that. Like, okay, I was an anti-SJW, and if you look at my old contents on YouTube, you would see like my old anti-SJW contents where I hate feminists, and it's like feminists are horrible, feminists are awful, and whatnot. And what brought me and Christiosity together was this video, and you probably heard of it because everybody thought it was cringy. But it's a video like reasonable questions for anti-SJWs. You seen it?
no, actually, I haven't.
Oh, it's weird because the Amazing Atheist covered it. Like it was something like each and every single last anti-SJW covered, but Christiosity was in a clip, for reasonable questions for anti-SJWs, and everybody was laughing at her. Everybody was making fun of her. However, I liked what she said. She said, why don't we work together to help men's rights? And when she said, I am willing to work together with you to help men's rights, I, took her up on her offer, and I, sorry about that. Um, I contacted her on Twitter. We started following each other back, and then I noticed, anti-SJWs moving the goalpost because originally, feminists would just block us on sites. If you're an anti-SJW, you would be blocked on sites. And at the time, people were just saying, we want you to talk. We just want to have a conversation. We just want to have a dialogue. And for me, I was like, okay, like, look, let's just talk. Let's just have a conversation. Let's just have a dialogue. But then it seems like people were mad at Christiosity for not agreeing with them. And, it's like, well, of course, she's like to the left. I think she's like a socialist. So it's like, of course, you're not agree. You've asked her to talk. Like, of course, you're not going to have much in common from somebody at the opposite end. But for me, I just gave her kudos for talking in a time where most feminists block this on side. Then, Sargon made his videos on Christiosity, and it was really weird because I was his Patreon and I barely knew her. And so, because I was Sargon's Patreon and I didn't know Christiosity at all, I just kept to myself and I didn't really say anything. But then, after a while, Christiosity and I became closer friends. And then Sargon had that really, really cringy debate with Richard Spencer where Sargon was like, have you read John Locke? And it's like, Sargon, nobody's read John Locke, It's like, okay, I've never read John Locke. We don't really focus on him on any of the schools. And even if we have, most kids cheat on tests, so it's really dumb, really stupid. I thought he made a fool of himself when arguing with Richard Spencer. So me and Christiosity got closer, but I was still like the anti-SJW type, and then the stalker and I, we were originally, well, we were loosely friends. I wouldn't say we were close friends, but we were like on a line friends. But then it's kind of like he got mad at me, he got angry at me and he stalked me for 10 months. So it's kind of a lot like, it's kind of a lot like, and all that, but he characterized me in such a, an unflattering like, it's like he just went out of his way to make me look as horrible as possible. So I was like, yep, you know what? I'm just evil incarnate. And that is where the name Evil Incarnate comes from. The name Evil Incarnate is based off, my stalker's characterization of me. Because he's like, she's a liar, a manipulator, a deceiver. She's going to fool you and she's a hypocrite. And it's like, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm Evil Incarnate. Uh huh. So, like, the name was me just being sarcastic.
Nice. So you said he was a libertarian?
Yeah, he's a
That's,
libertarian.
like, does he know what libertarians are? Libertarians aren't supposed to do that. Like that kind of goes against their ideology. Or at least they should recognize that like what goes around comes around for one. Like you, you're supposed to value people's rights to privacy for one.
Oh
And
man, I am getting a phone call. We might have to need to switch it to I'm gonna switch it to online because I'm getting a phone call because this is my phone. Hold on.
okay.
Wait, I need to disconnect.
Okay. Okay, so while she takes that phone call, I will see if anybody is tweeting. I don't it's not. Um, I need to change the thumbnail for this. Jeez Louise. All right. Anybody has anything to input? You've been watching the stream. Shows a total of 2 that are watching the stream. I don't think I did a very good job sharing the stream. I think Lapis did a very good job, much better job last time sharing the stream. So she's obviously got a better following than I do. I'm not trying to trash talk my following. It's just that people care more about what she has. Um, Waiting for Evil Incarnate to reconnect. Should do that. We'll see. Sorry about the dead air. Um, do, 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 do. So, how was your day? How are you feeling? Do you know when people ask me the question, "How are you?" I don't know how to answer it. Because I don't know what they mean. Like, if you say "How are you?" what do you think it means? Because to me, it means so many different things. Like you're looking at like, are you healthy? How's your emotional life? How's your love life? How like like be specific about what you want to know. And even then, when you ask how are you, generally we don't even care about the answer. All we want to hear is fine, thanks. How are you? It's very going through the motions. I think it's really annoying. So if I say how are you, it's just a thing that I guess we're supposed to say. But if you ask me that question, I won't know what to say. So do you know what I say sometimes? I just say, I am, yes. She's not reconnected yet. Let me check Twitter. Maybe she doesn't know how to reconnect. Maybe. Well, that might end up being into the string. So, um, there she is. I'm back. Can you hear me? I cannot hear you, but let me add to stream.
Hello, can you hear
Okay,
me?
there we are. You're back. Cool.
Oh, you can't
I
hear
can hear you
me.
now.
Oh man,
I
I was
can.
scared because I kept saying like hello for like I said hello like 50 different times. Sorry.
I'm
I
sorry.
was on my cell phone and so I had an incoming phone call. I was in a private phone call. I hope you didn't hear anything. Did you hear anything?
No, I did not. And I didn't hear you at
I
all.
don't know if you
And
heard any of
no, what I can say is that I should have turned my head for a second to the right before you had said hello just now, because when you logged in, I have to actually add you to the stream, because anyone can have that code, because like the link is like a code to come onto the stream, but not just anybody can actually participate in the conversation. So on my end, I actually have to add you to that stream. So like earlier, I actually um, I shared that link on Twitter, the same link I shared with you. I shared it on Twitter, hoping that others might want to interact in comments, because I can read comments from anybody on this, but since not everybody did that, in fact, you're the only one on here that has, logged onto this. Yeah, there's no comments, there's no feedback from any viewers, unfortunately, but I should have, like I said, I should have just turned my head a second ago, and that way you weren't like yelling into the void.
Yeah, I was saying like hello for like, like 15, 20 times, but it's good now because, it's like I just had a phone call because the lights all went out, so I had no power at all. And I wasn't sure if I wasn't sure if I could do it because, I have a cheap Android phone and it's really cheap and
Yeah.
as you can see it's almost dead. It's as you could probably see, it's
Yeah.
almost dead. Not much life left in it anymore.
What kind of phone do you have anyway?
It's an Android, a Verizon Android, Motorola.
Motorola. Okay. I've got
Yeah,
a I've got the LG stylus, but it's with Cricket. Are you familiar with Cricket?
I'm not familiar with Cricket.
It's small, but it's not super small. So like, I know they have them in Colorado and Arizona, and I know that it's growing, but it uses the towers from, I think they use AT&T towers. I'm not sure, but it's a growing company. It's it's not the greatest. It's not the worst, but at least the phones aren't too expensive. And I like the LG. I've got an LG stylus, so I can use a stylus to write on it because I've got fat fingers. So one of the problems of being a tranny is you're likely to have big man fingers, right?
Well, you're really beautiful. You're very pretty. You're a very beautiful girl.
Thanks, but I have people at work regularly picking on me, pointing out how giant my hands are, and it's a little bit annoying. Or if they see me lifting something heavy, they're like, "Oh my god, you're really strong." And it's like, thank you for reminding me that I'm biologically male. But I mean, the reality is, being biologically male, like, I have advantages that you don't expect to see in biological women.
Well,
So
yeah, that would be true. That would be true. But you're making an effort. You're making an effort. You're not like one of those people who bald headed, weren't having a huge beard, wearing a wife beater, showing off all of their muscles and chest hair. It'd be like, what you did to that, man? How can you not tell that I'm a woman? How can you not tell? How is it not obvious it's you? You misgendered me.
yeah, you should at least try to get electrolysis on the face and the body, right? Obviously, you want to take hormone replacement therapy. You want to take anti-androgens like aldactone, like spironolactone, right? That reduces the testosterone in your body. You also want to take progesterone and estrogen to obviously increase your feminine hormones. These things would help to reduce any hair loss that like male pattern baldness might be caused like by testosterone. But I think the problem that we're seeing is there are too many people online, too many trans rights advocates that are saying you don't need to do the work. You just have to identify into the gender, and therefore that is your gender. And if you transition, well, you didn't become a woman when you transitioned. You were always a woman. You just worked to show the world and convince the world what you always knew. And that kind of mentality, it means to some people that why go through that effort? Why not just take me as I know I am?
Oh yeah, that's what Vosh said to Blair White. It's kind of like, no, you were a woman the whole entire time, and it's kind of a lot like, well, what's the point of transition? But now I remember what I wanted to talk to you. It's one of the links I giving you, like how activists could be no different than people who are like checkmate atheists. It's kind of you've seen that checkmate atheist, right? But
There's a joke meme about that, yeah.
But activists are a lot like that. But to me, it just kind of belittles transitioning, because it's kind of a lot like you could go and talk about the differences between men and women, because it all adds up together. It's not something that you could separate. It's, like the whole female package, like long hair, like women have long hair, women have boobs, women have feminine faces, whatnot, and these things go together. But they have this checkmate atheist attitude, like, oh yeah, well, there's this woman out there who's bald. I could point to you to a woman who has cancer who's completely bald. Checkmate. And it's like, well, women have feminine faces. Like, oh yeah, I could show you women who look just like me, and like checkmates. But it's like, if you could be bald and be a woman, and if you could have a masculine face and be a woman, and if you be flat chested and be a woman, it kind of, it's basically saying that you could look more manly than Ben Shapiro, and everybody should still see you as a woman. And I hate the whole checkmate atheist attitude, because yes, some women are bald, but you could be a bald-headed woman with huge boobs that gets their period, or it's kind of like you could be a flat-chested woman with a long hair and get your period, or you could not get your period because you have anorexia, but you could still, all these other things. But what they do is that they act like these things aren't connected, and then they wonder why we say, like, oh yeah, well, I self-identify as a robot,
Right. And so like the thing you're making a similar point to one I made, and that's like how you can read if someone's trans or not, because how you read them isn't because, oh, this person has this quality. It's that you look at everything together, and if enough things are there, you can tell, okay, that's a woman. If enough qualities are there, oh, that's a man. Or if enough qualities are there, you're like, oh, well, that's clearly a trans woman, or that's a trans man. Because like, okay, broad shoulders, prominent brow bones, square jaw, maybe there's some facial hair going on, 5 o'clock shadow, maybe they are balding. Like all those little things will add up and they'll paint a picture in your head. Like you'll make a snap judgment. In most cases, you're going to be right because you're used to seeing certain patterns. And you'll be like, that's a man, that's a woman. And that's something that we're biologically hardwired to do too. We don't even put thought into it, because this is ultimately how, like, going back to our hunter-gatherer days, even before then, maybe when we were swinging from the vines, like in order to assess a threat or identify some food source, we needed to be able to make a quick assessment. And so that's, if you see a woman, you see a woman. Now, sometimes like there's a distance will change that, right? So from a distance, you might perceive a woman, but up close, we're like, oh, well, no, that's actually a man. The resolution gets better, so you make your little model will change in your head. Like, one example kind of is, I don't know if I told this story in a video yet or not, but I've been misgendered before. Well, it depends on whether or not you consider it misgendering, but I've been misgendered where I'll be in someone's peripheral and they'll see a male silhouette. And so they'll address me by the male pronouns. When they look up and at me, then they correct themselves. And it's not because they're trying to be accommodating to my gender identity. It's because they really do see a woman. But in the silhouette, if it's kind of like, what's that called? Like the silhouettes with airplanes to identify like like in World War II, they had like a silhouette of planes and you'd radio in whether or not you saw like a particular kind of Japanese plane or whatever. I don't know if you know anything about this, but you would see a silhouette and be like, okay, it's this, right? Well, in your peripheral, all you can basically make out is the silhouette. And be like, okay, well, that's definitely male or definitely female. Up close, though, or looking head on, then you start to see more details that change that picture. Does it mean the silhouette's wrong? Not necessarily, but I can say that their initial judgment is technically correct. They're seeing a biological male, and they're referring to a biological male. Like looking at how I've adjusted this model by adding eyeliner, for example, wearing feminine garments, growing my hair out. Obviously, I don't have the facial hair that you'd expect in a biological male because I lasered it off. But it's that resolution can change things. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's accurate or inaccurate, but like in most cases, you're going to make about the right decision or right conjecture about what you're looking at, I think. So
yeah, because it's all of it together. And when they do the whole checkmate atheist argument, they just make themselves look dishonest. Like, oh yeah, I could point to you all the women with bald hair, but they are not paying attention that all the women that they point to with bald hair have big boobs, or wearing like feminine clothing, have really small, dainty little shoulders, and they get their period. Or they're like, oh, I could show you a bunch of flat-chested women, but the flat-chested women all have like long hair, long nails.
You can also look at other things too, like with the fat distribution, right? Mm-hmm. Males and females do not have the same kind of fat distribution. So that in itself is a giveaway. Like the texture of their skin will tell you something. If a woman is balding, how is she balding, right? So as women get older, their hair will become more sparse, but there's a male pattern baldness that women generally don't get, right? So you're not going to generally see like a woman's hair recede the way a man's does. It doesn't happen, and it's because women don't have those levels of testosterone or whatever other causes it might be. But this checkmate atheist mentality, I think you are right about that. They'll do the same thing when it comes to like talking about intersex. They'll say that they'll use intersex women as an excuse, but even when you look at intersex, it's not as clear cut as even they want it to be. They'll argue that, biology isn't clear cut, but then they still try to make a clear cut argument that doesn't work out that way. It's actually more complicated, and it actually works in, like, the explanation works in favor of the binary. So
yeah, because it's kind of like each time they point out to a woman with short hair, that woman would have like short hair or be balding, but would have big boobs to indicate woman, or they would show, a flat-chested woman, but it would be like long hair, feminine clothing, long nails to indicate woman.
There's other things too. Like another thing that you could look at is like, this is at least one of them. Like look at your hands and which finger is longer, your ring finger or your index finger. That'll
Oh.
tell you that's usually a good indicator of whether or not you're biologically male or female. There's also things about looking at the femur and looking at different parts of the skeleton. You can actually predict whether or not someone's actually male or female off of, there's a probability, but it's usually right. Even looking at the kind of skull as well. But yeah, like as far as like the finger, genetic males generally have, and this is true with even trans. They might say otherwise, but if you look at their finger, you can tell. If the ring finger is longer, testosterone at a particular point in utero, right? If the index finger is longer, it's biological female. Now, you usually don't find biological males with a longer index finger, but sometimes you do. And maybe they're going to be more likely to identify as gay, or maybe a homosexual transsexual.
Yeah, I've also saw that on the Tara Banks show. It's like a gay man, like it would be the reverse. You know, it's kind of like I don't know which finger is longer. What's it supposed to be again?
So,
It's
biological males. Let me see. Can you see my hands?
Yeah.
All right. So, which one's longer on my hands? Can you tell?
It looks even. To be honest, looks about even.
Well, okay, maybe it's not.
It looks even to me.
It actually is. It's this one. This one's longer. I mean, it's close.
I think my index finger is longer than my ring finger.
You're biologically female, right?
Yeah. I think. I think but it's different from my left hand and my right hand. With this one, my index finger is shorter than my ring finger. So, like right here, you could tell that my index finger, which is this one, is longer than my ring finger, which is this one. But I think it's like the reverse here, where my index finger is longer than my ring. Well, it's about even though.
That's a peculiarity. I'm not sure how to explain that.
But then again, I am bisexual. That could play a role. Being bisexual probably plays a role.
Maybe you absorbed a male twin while you were a fetus.
Yeah, it's probably because I'm bisexual, which is why my ring finger is longer than my index finger, at least on my left hand.
Well, we do know that testosterone does play a role in sexuality. Like, we find that women that have higher levels of testosterone are more likely to identify as lesbian. I don't have the sources right now, and I'm sorry. But I remember reading a study that showed that, but it also showed that those same kind of women are more likely to take risks and enter the kind of fields that are dominated by men. They're more likely to be venture capitalists. And it's because men are more likely to take risks, and men are more likely to take risks because testosterone being under that influence, you're more likely to make risky behaviors. So like sexuality is tied into that. I think that same study showed that like both biological males and biological females, if they had higher levels of testosterone, are more likely to come off or identify as being gay or lesbian. And that does make sense. I think you're going to be more dominant as a partner, but like, well, I'm not exactly sure how. I'm not exactly sure how to explain the gays. The lesbians make sense. Maybe the gays, they're more likely to be tops. I don't know, but it correlates, is what I'm saying. Maybe it's because they're more sexual. How about that? They're just more sexual. If you have higher testosterone, you're probably going to have more of a libido. So maybe they're more sexual creatures, and maybe they're more open to experimenting with their sexuality, or at least acknowledging their sexuality. Whereas a lot of men that live straight lives might actually not necessarily be straight. They might be more inclined to be bisexual, but they're more conforming if they have less testosterone, perhaps. I don't know. I'm spitballing here.
Yeah.
But this is all based on a study I read years ago.
Yeah, but anyway, what were we talking about earlier before we got into thing? Oh, yeah, the checkmate atheist attitude. It's kind of like they act like these things aren't all together, but when you look at the woman, you look at a full picture, you look at the long hair, you look at the boobs, you look at the feminine clothing. If you're missing one thing, you will still identify as woman. So it's like if you are a woman, if you have short hair, but if you still have the boobs and if you still have the, it's, everything else, it's kind of like it's kind of like okay, like my hair wasn't always this long. I've had short hair before, but even with short hair, with these knockers, you still read woman because I still have these knockers. So even when my hair is short, you would still read woman because of my boobs, but it's kind of like I grew my hair long and what.
But it's not just the boobs though. It's everything together. It's the whole picture together. It even might be like your gait, how you walk, because how you walk indicates what kind of bone structure you have, like whether or not you have like wider hips, right? I've even noticed like a lot of trans women will fake the way they walk. They'll exaggerate their gait just to make it look like they've got bigger hips than they do. And it's like literally like the way men and women walk isn't because they're trying to walk a certain way, but it's because that's how their bodies walk based off of literally their anatomy, like how their bones fit together. So with wider hips, they're going to have more exaggerated, shimmy or whatever. But if you don't have wider hips, you're less likely to go like that as you walk. So you can tell generally when you're looking at a biological female based off of how they walk, and you can tell if they're trans. Because if you see a male walk that way, that'll tell you something about them. Either they're very heavy set, or they're biologically female. So. Anyway.
Well, I don't pay much attention to how people walk, but one of the things that I've noticed is that sure, Darren Meyer, she does pass really well, but what I noticed is that when you put her right next to a biological woman, her head is much larger than a biological woman. I never noticed that until she was standing next to Lauren Sutter. When she was standing next to Lauren Sutter, she is taller than Lauren Sutter, but her head, her bone structure is much wider. Like if you look at her head and Lauren Sutter's head, Lauren Sutter has a more smaller, more dainty little head.
Yeah, you realize you're going to make me, knowing this, having heard you say this, I'm probably going to be more self-conscious when I'm around women, and I'm more likely to, I might even like subconsciously avoid being too close so that I'm not compared, so people don't pick up on, hey, that person stands out. Like alone.
Yeah, because I didn't notice that, because it's like whenever I saw, Darren Meyer in videos, I always read a biological woman, like she keeps reading woman, but it was only until she was standing right next to Lauren Sutter. It's like, well, you're much taller, and the bone structure is much wider, and then you make the comparisons, and then only when she was standing next to a biological woman did she clearly read as trans. But when she's by herself, she doesn't look trans. But when she's by a biological woman, that's when she starts looking trans.
Yeah. So I'm that's probably true even with me. Like my build is not very feminine. Like there's not much I can do about that outside of getting some very expensive surgeries. Like I don't have hips. I don't have much of a butt. I've got broad shoulders. I've got long arms. They're not big arms, but they're long arms. I got giant hands, and I'm tall. I'm like 5'9 3/4, and I've also got a jutting brow bone and a pretty square jaw, relatively speaking. And like all those things together, a lot of people can still see male. Not everybody, but a lot of people can still see male. And I think it's ultimately when people get up close that that image changes because their brain tells them, oh well, feminine clothing, glasses, no facial hair, eyeliner, and long hair, right? Those little accessories, the accoutrements, those little things tell them, oh well, actually, you're not looking at a male. You're looking at more of a butch female, perhaps, and so then people correct themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I have an aunt that looks like a man, and well, whatever. She looks like a man, but everybody still calls her by she, her pronouns because but she is one of those like butch lesbian types. Butch lesbian who wants to, like in a person at school explained it to me that like the reason why lesbians try to look like men is because they want to attract women, and because like they don't want to transition, so it's quite weird because they don't want to transition. They want to keep the body they were born with, and they'll be like, no, 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 I'm a woman, but I'm a lesbian. But they would get their hair like really, really short. They will
But
wear men's
you know what
clothing
though? Like when
women.
I see that, like that seems to be more genuine than saying, "But I'm really a man." Like I'm not trying to diss on trans men at all. Like if you really have gender dysphoria, by all means transition. But a lot of people are coming out as trans because they are uncomfortable just being gender non-conformative, and maybe they got tricked into it. Maybe they were being gender non-conformative, and then someone convinced them, no, you're really trans. You have to go all the way. But they don't really want that. They just want to. They don't want to be held to a feminine standard. They don't like what that brings onto them. They don't like the attention they get from men when they express their gender in a feminine way. Like men treat women differently when they appear feminine and when they appear masculine. Men are less likely to mess with you if you dress like a dude. In fact, like a lot of butch lesbians, they have a chip on their shoulder, quite often a very, very aggressive. They dress like a dude, you're like, okay, yep, clearly you're not inviting anybody to hit on you at all. You're someone that no one wants to mess around with. And my experience in the nightclubs is you don't mess with lesbians, especially butch lesbians, and especially with the butch lesbian's girlfriend. That is a major no-no. Like I used to live in Colorado Springs, and we didn't have many gay clubs. We did have a couple, and we had a bunch of military bases. And so you'd have gays and lesbians would bring their friends out to the gay clubs, and their friends were straight, and their friends would try to hit on like the lesbians' girlfriends who were bisexual or lesbian. And the butch lesbians would have none of it. There would be fights breaking out all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Ariella Scarcella, not only Ariella Scarcella, but I think Miss London touched on the two topics she brought on. It's kind of a lot like there would be like lesbians would internalize, internalized homophobia, and they would come from a religious family and they couldn't accept themselves being lesbians, so they would deem that they're trans men, and then they're stuck detransitioning, so they would just transition to men, and then like 5 years later they realize that they are just a lesbian, and they just this whole entire time they just felt uncomfortable with it because they come from a strong Christian family that didn't really like that.
Yeah.
And with Miss
It's
London,
it's essentially conversion therapy, right? Like you're no longer a sinner once you transition to the other gender because now it's a heterosexual relationship, right?
yeah, is a heterosexual relationship. And what Miss London touched upon when she talked about J.K. Rowling is that she has seen firsthand, trans people going like, you might be trans, who knows, you might be trans. And I don't like that because if you caught me at the right time of my life, you probably could have convinced me that I was trans, because, like I think that everybody questions their gender, questions their sexuality. And if you like reach me like about 18 and 19, you probably could have convinced me that I'm a trans man. And if you like 18, 19, I probably would have been like, I might be a trans man and I might, be interested in looking into, getting surgery. So I am so glad that this wasn't around back when I
Yeah.
was a teenager, because who knows, I probably would have been one of those people who detransitioned.
Yeah, and the doctors would have already got your money. Like you would spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, like tens of thousands, like a score, like $20,000 or more on getting your breast reduction and maybe some kind of implants. Maybe trying to get like, because there are different implants to make you look like masculine, buff, right? You can body sculpt your body to look more masculine. Uh, you might get some jaw implants to make it look like a squarer jaw if you can't do it with testosterone, right? There's so much that trans men can do to make themselves appear more masculine, but it is very expensive and it really is a racket. I'm not convinced that the doctors performing all these surgeries are doing it for through their own generosity. Like obviously they are what's the word, mercenaries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to make a YouTube video on this within the rules got stricter, because I noticed that, okay, I do think that the person is transphobic, surely, but Walt Hayer writes in the paper genders, and one of the good points that he made is that surgeons make so much money. They make a shit ton of money through people transitioning. No, I think that the book is mostly shitty because he mostly goes on to sometimes he shits on the whole entire LGBT. Like sometimes he just shits on all of the LGBT, the gays, the lesbians, the bis, and the trans. So it's mostly a hateful book, I would especially into the trans community would see so. But one of the good points I thought he made was that so many doctors and surgeons make so much, and don't they make money when you transition and detransition, so they get like double the money, like
And
they
so
get
it's
money.
something that you go to the same surgeon, yeah, but that's the thing, is like the whole medical industry will make a lot of money off of you, because you don't go to the same doctor, at least as far as I know. You won't go to the same doctor for surgeries as the one that prescribes you the hormones. And before you get onto the hormones, theoretically, you're also going to therapists, right? And the therapists are hopefully not the same ones prescribing you the hormones. So you go to so many different specialists just to go along that process. And in the meanwhile, you're being nickeled and dimes and driving yourself into the poorhouse just to modify your body, hoping that you can feel comfortable in your own skin. And if you're really trans, it could be worth it. If you're not, no, don't. If there's any way that you can be comfortable in your own body without massively modifying it like that, if you could just be gender non-conformative, do that. Find some way to make peace with that. It should only be as like a last resort that you should be trying to transition your body, and that's after you've exhausted everything. In my case, I definitely knew I was trans and that there was no other avenue for me but to transition. And like, I don't know if you know my history, but basically I had to literally castrate myself because I couldn't afford the surgeries.
Oh, you castrated yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you reminded me something I also wanted to talk about. You said that you disagreed with Miss London because Miss London said that only 1% of people detransitioned, and you disagreed with Miss London because it was an NHS, by the way. It's NHS in America does not have NHS. I don't know how the differences between the British system and the American system, but
I
according
think
to
you're talking
Miss
about
London,
the
only 1%.
NIH. Are you confusing the NIH with the NHS?
No, no, Miss London, she's British, and
Miss
she
London isn't
it
British.
would be
Miss London's
uh,
American.
is she?
Pretty sure she is. I think you're talking about the NIH, but let me Google it.
Oh, well, I could show you the video. I don't know how would I screen share? Yeah, I need to find that video by Miss London, and she was talking about J.K. Rowling.
But yeah, I think the NHS. Yeah, the NHS is basically their health system. So it makes sense because she's talking about Rowling, right? She's talking about the British healthcare system, and so to your point about uh, the statistics on detransitioners, we don't really know what that real number is, and we don't know what that real number is because not everybody who detransitions is going to report it. And like I mentioned in that message to you that you're referring to, is a lot of people, a lot of the trans suicides that we're looking at could be essentially detransitioners, and this is how they detransition because they don't know any other way out, right? So they went too far, and now their life is ruined. They drove themselves into the poorhouse, so they kill themselves off. Maybe they're worried that they're going to lose all their friends, and they kill themselves off. But like trans suicides are still high, and one of the arguments against people transitioning at all is that, oh well, transitioning doesn't actually change the mortality rate, and then it doesn't affect the mortality rate with trans women all that much. The suicide rate with trans women is still high even after transition. Part of it is because I think either not all of us are really trans and we're transitioning and we shouldn't be, and we don't know how to live with the consequences. And then part of it is transitioning. We think that transitioning is the answer to everything, and it's not. And there's more. There's something else in our life that is out of balance, and we just put everything on that and hoped that that would solve everything. But really, we needed to get other parts of our life in order. And then also part of it is we weren't socialized into our gender roles, and so things aren't quite working out. Like you can be the most passable trans you want to be, and you're still not exactly passing because people can tell that you're male or female on the way you talk, like literally the way you sound or the way that you talk, like the inflection in your voice, right? Your body language. There's so many things that it's like this. Transitioning shouldn't just be a superficial thing. Like what makes a girl and a boy, even on the social level, if you were just to say that gender is a social construct, is multidimensional. And so it's something that is a process that people learn throughout their whole lives. And so thinking you can just like put on a new skin, right? Like just uploading a new character in a video game, it doesn't work that way. Men and women don't operate the same way. They don't behave the same way. So you got to re-socialize. You got to relearn everything. I think that a lot of trans people just don't do that. They don't even try to do that. And so then when things don't work out for them, maybe there's not the acceptance that they want, or maybe they realize on some level that they're failing, but they don't know how they're failing. That gets to them. And so they're likely to bow out. They're likely to detransition or kill themselves off, but then they're not going to report it to those statistics, right? So all those statistics that go into detransitioners and whatever happens to trans, well, that's self-reported. if you choose not to report it, maybe, who knows, maybe they want stealth. But if you choose not to report it, then that's just going to be lost data, right? That's data that they don't know that they don't know. Like the statisticians don't know what they don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm ranting. Are you still there? Okay, yep, I should have looked. Where are you? Where did you go?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I lost you, and apparently I was talking.
You lost me. Well, okay.
Yeah, at some point I lost you, and I was talking to dead air. And now anybody watching the live stream is probably frustrated with me for not looking at the other computer, because like my setup, I don't have the camera on my computer over there because I've got a green screen back here. So, sorry,
Anyway,
I don't know what. Go ahead.
I found what I was looking for. Okay, the name of the video is called J.K. Rowling Finally Goes Full Turf by Miss London, and it is 13 minutes, 37 seconds into it, and it says, the NHS says that less than 1% of people detransitioned.
Yeah, so she's talking about the British system, the British medical system. So it's a national health service, which is something that we really should have here ourselves, is something like the NHS, which I was hoping Obamacare would be, but that's a different matter altogether. Like I was trying to say before we lost each other, is that I don't think that people are reporting. There's enough reporting because maybe people are embarrassed, or maybe people are killing themselves off and they're not reporting. But I think that, as far as I know, those numbers are self-reported. So if someone reports that they detransition, that goes into their stats. If someone doesn't report that, it could just be that they lost them. They lost, like the statisticians just didn't get anybody to give the feedback of like, okay, so how far are you on your transition now that you've taken these steps in the process? The people are just not getting back to them. They're either they don't want to report because they're maybe too embarrassed, or for whatever reason, or maybe because they kill themselves off, and that's how they detransition. So, yeah. I don't trust those numbers, is what I'm saying. The numbers might be higher. And almost certainly are higher. We just don't know by how much. And even go ahead.
Yeah, I do try to listen to both sides of the argument. It's why I don't like being called a transphobe, and I don't like being called a TERP, because I actually do listen to, both sides of the argument. Like, I actually have a friend who is very supportive of non-binary people, and he would say that non-binary people are valid, and we would have a discussion on it, and he would discuss his opinions on why non-binary people are valid, and how they are equally as trans as you are and whatnot. And it's kind of like, to me, there's a difference between you who went on hormones, and I presume you got facial feminization surgery, and somebody who just wants to call themselves a woman with no effort. But we're having a discussion. I appreciate that, because I really do try to listen to people from different sides of the political aisle. And I don't like this shutting down of conversation, this shutting down of dialogue. And it's also related to this video I sent to you on Twitter, where it did bring up, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and whatnot, going like, these aren't perfect people. They've done many terrible things. But if you're not allowed to make mistakes, how are you supposed to learn and grow from them and become better people? Like if you are ignorant, then censoring you isn't going to make you less ignorant. We need to have a discussion and a dialogue so that you could learn from your mistakes and become a better person rather than shutting down the conversation altogether and be like, you know what, there's going to be no conversation.
Yeah, I agree. It is a lot better to have that conversation because, and even then, even if you're wrong, you might be right about some things, and so it's still worth having conversations because both people can learn. You could be wrong but make very good points, make a very good strong argument. Like debating someone can actually like as a kid I used to love to get into an argument because I would learn more about the other side. I would learn like what is my opposition arguing? What is their argument? And maybe if I understand their arguments, I can explain their arguments. I can also find a way to come up with a counter argument in the future. It doesn't hurt to engage in arguments and in dialogue with others, even if they're completely wrong or partially wrong. Knowing what the other side has to say can be a benefit to both sides, is what I'm saying.
Well, as long as they're acting in good faith and not just throwing ad hominem.
Right. Well, yeah, that's not a proper argument then. If they're not doing it in good faith, if they're doing ad hominems, none of that is.
It's worth it. Like it's why I am willing to engage with progressives and listen about non-binary people who are true believers and who really want to see, non-binary people, whatnot. And like one of the things that for me I find annoying is that they try to keep comparing, non-binary people and trans people to black people. And sure, being both minorities in a country, there's going to be some overlap, being both being minorities. But black is how I was born.
Yeah.
I was born black, and nobody detransitions from being black. Nobody go, well, I'm black, but I'm tired of being black. I'm going to be white again.
Wait, so you're saying that Michael Jackson didn't transition from black to white? Are you saying that he was still black even when he?
I mean, I think Blair White. I think she made a good point when she brought up Rachel Dolezal to Vosh, and Vosh just kept saying, "Abolish gender. Gender is a spook. Gender doesn't really exist." I mean, he's just like, I'm like, gender is a spook. What does that even mean? That doesn't even make sense. Or let's abolish gender. Gender does not really exist. And, like you are socialized into believing that something is a male. Like you wouldn't really know that that's a male unless society told you that that's a male and whatnot. Like you're brainwashed into thinking men are men and women are women. It's just like this really weird arguments, and I don't even know if even he believes in what he's saying.
So the whole thing about spooks is a reference to Max Stirner, who's a philosopher that preceded Nietzsche. So it's sort of like about attaining enlightenment by dissolving sort of falsities in life. Like theoretically, gender isn't real, and it's a thing that it's a figment that we believe in. Like religion isn't real, or the gods that we believe in aren't real. We need to learn to disavow them. Thing is, gender is real, right? Gender is a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon where someone's biology, the way someone's biology plays out, how it informs their behaviors. That is what we observe, is the phenomenon that we observe from someone's biology. So biological females tend to behave a certain way. And because they tend to behave a certain way, we can say that is how women behave. and therefore we can say that is what it means to be of that gender. Just because some women behave differently doesn't mean that you can't say that there isn't a common psychology for someone under the influence of estrogen and having gone through female puberty, right? There are common experiences that women have. I'm not saying that all women will have the same experiences, but they will share most of the same experiences, unless they're intersex, which is going to be a slightly different set of circumstances. But the point is, like, you can still say this is what women go through. This is what it means to be a woman. Therefore, that is what gender is. That is the experience of that. So saying it's a spook, I think, is just stupid.
Yeah, and Vosh kept telling Blair White, gender is a spook, gender is a spook, and he kept repeating gender is a spook, and I'm like, what does that even mean?
He was looking for a hashtag, is what it sounds like.
And not only that, but it's like, I think that Blair White did a much better job in that debate than Vosh did.
Probably. I didn't see
because
I didn't
mostly
see
just called her whenever, Huh?
I said I didn't see the video. I didn't see the video myself, but I believe that she probably would have. And she's still kind of ditzy, but if what he was saying throughout was along those lines, then yeah, she would have probably come off as the better person in that one.
Well, I mean, I don't think Blair White is as dumb as people think she is. I think Blair White is actually pretty smart.
If she is, she hides it. I think she wants to come off as a ditzy valley girl. I really think that, like, that's the model of how she wants to express her gender identity. I don't know if that's actually how she really is, but that's definitely how she wants it to come off, and it makes her seem kind of dumb. But yeah, she does make good points, and I'll admit when she makes good points.
Yeah, she does come across as a valley girl. She definitely does come across as a valley. Remember, she's trying to appeal to the average person, like most people are not going to want to hear, a long philosophical speech. People would want something more fun and more entertaining. But like, look, she's really funny, and it takes brains to be funny. Like I remember reading an article somewhere that's funny people tend to be smart because you had to be pretty brainy in order to make people laugh.
Well, there's definitely an intelligence there. I think it's not all that different than learning to be good at a job, right? So like some people, they learn how systems work, and they learn how to get the most out of that system. So some people are really good at computers, and some people are really good at reading an audience, right? They know that they have that emotional intelligence to read an audience, and that is an intelligence, right? Knowing like how people are receptive to something, what jokes work, what jokes don't work, and how to adjust according to that audience, and being able to pick up on, trendy conversations. What are people into? What do people find amusing? Like it requires definitely some kind of intelligence. I'm not going to say they're geniuses, but they definitely have to have a specialized intelligence for that.
Yeah, you had to be able to read people, and you had to know what's interesting because she's been doing YouTube for 5 years. She has since faded into obscurity. She has nearly like 1 million, and she started off at like 0, but she has like nearly 1 million subs. You're not going to get nearly 1 million subs if you're
I would say
just going to.
The reason why she has so many subs is because she's trans, and because she's pretty, and because she says things that people who are conservative can agree with, and because also part of it is she's got a lot of subscribers that are haters, that that need something to talk about. You even have some people that will subscribe just so that they can talk about her on their own channels and sort of parasite off of her. They'll do reaction videos to her because that's how they think they're going to become famous themselves.
Yeah, but I always find it like really, really creepy. Like if a person has like 7 videos in a row about Blair White. Like I one time found a channel that had like nearly like it was either like 100 videos in a row or about like 500 videos. I forgot the number, but it was like a lot of videos in a row, either from 100 about Sargon of Akkad, and not Christy Winters. It's not Christy Winters. I know you were thinking Christy Winters. No, it was a different person, and they have like 100 different videos in a row, all dedicated, all about crapping on Sargon of Akkad. And it's like, they just come across as weird, creepy. They look like stalkers. They like just look really, really scary, like, okay, like find something else to talk about. Like if you talk about something else you would seem, you'd be more entertaining.
The response to that should be, do you want to fuck him or what? Like, is that's what it's going to take for you to get to shut up about him, is to finally fuck the dude or what?
Yeah, it's to a certain extent, like I know that ContraPoints, like it makes like 5 or 7 different videos complaining about Blair White, like somewhere in the video, but I just find it like weird and odd because Blair White ignores her. It's just like Blair White, it's mostly ignores. So in ContraPoints, it has like, like 5 or 7 different videos where she, where she like references Blair or calls Blair Vanessa, sometimes she calls her Vanessa, or like, Tiffany Tumbles, like Tiffany Tumbles seems like it's based off Blair White. It's kind of a lot like it just makes her look really weird and creepy, especially when Blair White ignores her and Blair White just goes on about her life, not responding. It's like if it would be different if it was like back and forth. It would be different if there's like a back and forth, and it didn't make sense. But if it's like one-sided, then it just, it's like, it's one-sided, just,
Yeah, it's very, very creepy. I think it's very, like you said, I think stalkerish behavior.
Well, I don't think
to me, it seems to me like this someone that does something like that might actually be attracted to the person. They feel scorned that they're not getting attention for them, and so they have to do these videos hoping that they're going to get the attention that they really desperately seek, because in some way they're hoping that they'll win them over on some level. Maybe.
Yeah, well, when it comes to ContraPoints, I don't think ContraPoints is a stalker, but I think she's trying to appeal to her base that hates Blair White.
Or
It's not appeal to her base, and I think she is milking Blair White
it's
for
possible. It could also be that she's jealous of Blair White. She might actually be jealous, resentful, because Blair was more passable even before surgery than ContraPoints was. Like ContraPoints had to get facial feminization surgery, like obviously Blair White did too, but ContraPoints had to get more surgery, and she looks a lot better than she used to. And without Blair even having done any of that, she still was a much more passable trans woman. And she probably resents that. She probably resents how quickly Contra rose to fame just off of her beauty and her personality. And she didn't even have to work at it, but ContraPoints does, and she probably really, really hates that.
Yeah, Blair White looked like a woman long before she had facial feminization surgery. She still looked like a woman, so it's like, she's like, oh no, like, like Blair White talked about how Riley Dennis had facial feminization surgery before she did, but Blair White always looked like a woman for as long as I've seen her.
Yeah, that is something I wouldn't mind getting, but that's again one of those very, very expensive surgeries. Like an ex of mine got that surgery in Boston and it cost her about $20,000. That's not even with anything else, just to get the brow done, just the brow, nothing else, just to shave that off a little bit and round out the forehead, and that cost $20,000. That's horrible. It shouldn't cost that much, but it does. And then later on, when you want to get like breast aug, that itself costs like $7,000 to $10,000 depending on who the surgeon is. 1,000 of that goes to your anesthetician, no, sorry, that's the wrong word. Anesthesiologist, not anesthetician. And anesthesiologist. I sounded really dumb. Yeah, so it's a racket. It really is. It's very expensive, and if you don't have to work for it, then people are going to resent you, and that, especially if you don't have to work for it, people resent you, and then you have an opinion that sort of alienates them, right? So when you like Blair White contradicting ContraPoints and Riley Dennis and taking a pretty conservative stance, that's got to be like insult to injury for them. So I'm not surprised that either of them would end up doing videos about one another.
Yeah, it's just I think that ContraPoints is using Blair White, trying to milk Blair White for subs, and I just think that she's appealing to an audience that hates her, because even Vosh shits on Blair White. I know that Hunter Avalon went into Vosh's channel to talk crap about Blair White. So and I know that Nuts Cursed on Twitter loves to talk crap about Blair White. It seems like she's just well hated among the trans community. So it's kind of like the country's going like, well, what are the people in the trans community talking about? What are talking about how horrible Blair White is? Well, to make money, I'm going to talk about how horrible Blair White is because it's what people want.
In truth, a lot of trans women love Blair White. A lot of trans women actually feel relieved when they hear Blair White, because she says things that they wish they could say. And like, if I had transitioned much later, I would probably look up a lot more to Blair White. As it is, I had my own little role models to look up to. Unfortunately, a lot of those I sort of abandoned because I realized that they were bad role models. But like in my own case, like some of the people I looked up to were porn stars. You should not look up to a porn star. Porn stars have a lot of faults, and yeah, it's pretty bad. But for me, it was like I was captivated by how beautiful they were, how elegant they were, how they were able to pass. How did they do that? It seemed almost magical to me. Like they were able to achieve something like that. I'm like, that's the kind of woman I want to be like. But no, they ended up having faults, and turns out they had a lot of work done that I would never be able to afford. And like, I actually have encountered like people in the porn industry, and they got a lot of vices, and I'm not particularly keen on those vices. So yeah, it's better to not idolize people like that. I'm going off on a tangent. Anyway, I actually do need to go now because my roommate's going to be home any minute, and I have to end the stream at this time.
Well, it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed spending time with you. It was as fun as I imagined it would be, except for losing power.
Yeah,
without being without power for the first, I think it was like the first hour of the live.
Yeah, that was unfortunate,
but
because
and be like
there's that, and there's you not having power, and then also losing the connection. And even now, I can't even see you, but I could see you before. I don't know if you wanted it that way or not, but your camera was on when you had it. But in spite of all those technical difficulties, like, it's been a really good conversation, and eye-opening, I think. So
yeah, I had a lot of fun speaking to you. It was just fun as I imagined it would be, except for losing power. But, you are a beautiful person and are a very beautiful person.
I don't know about that. I'm actually a very bad person. I'm a very selfish person.
I'm saying you're a beautiful person inside and outside because, you have a good heart, you have a good soul, you're a very decent person, and I feel like you want to do a lot of good in the world.
I mean, I think so, but then again, the best villains are a hero in their own story, so who knows? Anyway, yeah, we should do this again. I actually want to do more live streams. So sometime when you're available, I'm likely to invite you on. Although it might have other people on as well. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing a live stream with Mars, and she goes by Boogie Tran. I don't know if you follow her. And
No.
maybe no, she used to go by Last Ladyboy Starfighter. Don't know if you know who that is, but she changes her handle every so often. But that's good. So basically, her Mars and Fionn Orlander, and I think there's someone else who's going to be on the stream. Feel free to check it out. And if everybody's bored in the conversation, then I might send you an invite. I'm not sure how well I'm going to host that, but I'm going to do my best. That stream is going to be very, very casual. These are people who are fighting the good fight when it comes to, being anti-TRA. But I want the kind of conversation I want to have is just going to be casual, laid back, and sort of commiserating as comrades. Like the atmosphere I want to have for that is we're soldiers in the culture war, and we're talking about our dreams. We're talking about where we've been and where we want to be when the war is over, kind of thing. That's the narrative that I want people to take away from that stream tomorrow. I'm not sure how well I can actually make that work, but we're going to see. Anyway, like I said,
a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of fun on this one, and I will see you later. Bye.
Bye.